Good morning all, and welcome to the August meeting of Council. I'd like to welcome our invited guests, including Minister Lethan and also students from Kingaroy High School. Mrs. Jane Erkins, welcome, and welcome councillors, welcome staff. We'll now open the meeting. Do we have any apologies or leave of absence? I don't believe we do. I'd now like to call on Minister Lethan from the Seventh-day Adventist Church to conduct the opening prayers. Thank you, Lethan.
There we go. All right, got it sorted. Sorry, this is my first time. So great to be here with you all. I've met some of you before, but as was said, I pastor the Seventh-day Adventist churches here in the South Burnett, so it's wonderful to be with all of you this morning. I thought I'd just read a verse from James chapter 1, verse 5, and it says, "If any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." And I thought I'd read that this morning because all of us as leaders, we need wisdom. Wisdom for the many different choices and decisions that we have to make throughout the week and throughout the day. And lucky for us that God says if we need it, he'll give it to us. So let's pray and just ask God to be with us today. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for the privilege it is to be able to open the meeting with prayer today. I just pray for all of our counsellors here and all our guests who are seated here in this gallery as well. We just pray for them that you will give them the wisdom that they need to be able to navigate this day for the decisions and the choices that they need to make. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen.
Minister Lethan, thank you very much, and we're very grateful to have you with us, and wish you a blessed day. Thank you. I'd like to now call on Jaden from the Kingaroy State High School to undertake the acknowledgement of the traditional owners on this land upon which we meet today. Thank you, Jaden.
Good morning. I'm Jaden Barnes from Kingaroy State High School and Camilleri Indigenous mob down in New South Wales. I'd like to acknowledge the Waka Waka people who are traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay respects to elders both past and present of the Waka Waka Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present.
Thank you, Jaden. Very well done, and thank you to the school and to the students and staff for coming along this morning. You're all welcome to stay and listen into the meeting from the gallery, and certainly feel free to leave when you feel you'd like to do so. Right, we'll now move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the declaration of any conflicts of interest. Councillors, do we have any declarations to be made in relation to the items on the agenda today? Mr. CEO.
Playing up this morning. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've got a couple. Now, councillors have taken, well, the ones that I'm aware of, we've got Councillor Potter and Shoemaker with the Private Hospital Foundation because they're on as personal representatives rather than council representatives to the board, and that's in confidential. Actually, I have one, which is I'm a board member of the Kingaroy Rotary Club, and I will be stepping out when that item with regards to the shed. And I just would like to make it very clear to the meeting and the gallery that I've had actually no involvement in the preparation of the report, and General Manager O'May has been handling this all the way through because I have a real conflict in that space. And Councillor Duff, did you want me to do yours or?
Oh, well,
Okay.
I can. Mr Mayor, I've got a perceived conflict of interest with the Mergen Men's Shed lease item, and I'm also a member of the Visit South Burnett group, so I've got a conflict of interest with that one as well.
Just for assistance for the minutes, it's the perceived conflict. The Visit South Burnett membership isn't a real conflict because it's a member, not an executive position. It's just noted for the minutes. The perceived conflict with the report for the the Mergen Men's Shed, it ties up to a lease. Whilst it's, well, express an opinion, not a real conflict, it is a perceived conflict, and just for propriety's sake, we should request a meeting to agree whether the councillor has a conflict or not, and then vote on it as to whether it's a real conflict or not.
Mr. CEO, is that something that we should be undertaking at this point in time, or when we get to that agenda?
If we deal with it now and then the matter's dealt with. So, Linnell, you've got that wording.
I just need to also declare a perceived conflict.
Okay, which one?
So just for item 14.2, just with the South Burnett directions, I just wanted to make it known that I'm a board member on the Red Earth Community Foundation, and that it's my understanding that John Carey and Georgie Somerset are both board members on the Red Earth Community Foundation, but also members of South Burnett Directions. And I also just wanted to acknowledge that in my previous employment with Stanwell, John Carey was my manager, and also just acknowledge in my previous employment with Stanwell that Ken Mills was a member of the Tron Community Partnership Fund Community Reference Group, in which I helped Stanwell to administer. So I just wanted to acknowledge my relationships with those members of South Burnett Directions and just have them noted in the minutes.
Mr. CEO, would it be correct to say that Councillor Shoemaker's perceived conflict of interest there, in fact, does not constitute STUTS?
It's given the matter that's being addressed, it's not a real conflict, and we'll note it certainly for propriety, but it's, yeah, no, it's not. Linnell will just deal with the wording for Councillor Duff, and then that's the only one that we need to deal with further. So it's to basically what we're asking council is that it is generally a perceived conflict. Councillor Duff is assisting with the group to get a grant. The grant wouldn't be applicable. It's not a material interest. There's no benefit to the councillor at all. It's just her performing basically a community duty, but it is a lease matter for council, and so it's because of the lease. And so what we're asking is that council is comfortable that there is no real conflict, and that the councillor either stays, firstly that there is or isn't a real conflict. If it isn't a real conflict, well then the councillor stays in the room if she's comfortable.
So I'm happy to leave or stay, whatever is the wish of council. So
All right, Mr. Mayor, so you, we got her up, Linnell?
Right. Move a motion in relation to
Yes, please.
the matter, and it would be my view that in this regard,
You've got the wording.
we have the wording there that council resolved that Councillor Duff has a perceived conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, Councillor Duff may participate in the meeting, discuss and vote upon it. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour?
Yep.
You can't vote, Councillor Duff.
She doesn't. Okay. This is one of those rare occasions.
Can't vote, Councillor Duff. I see you're tentatively not sure whether you can put your hand up, but a resolution passed unanimously from those who are entitled to vote on the matter. So Councillor Duff may stay in the meeting for that particular matter.
So that matter's dealt with, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, CEO Mark. Right. Well, it's now our. We'll move on to item 6, and it's our pleasure as council to invite, certainly in the new term of council, the first deputation from Mrs. Jane Erkins to speak to the matter of the increase in the water charges from the council standpipes. Welcome, Jane, and thank you for giving us your time. So Jane has a period of 15 minutes to present, and we'll hand over to you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, Mayor Brett, Councillors Gavin, Ros, Scott, Kirsty, Danita, Kathy. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. CEO Mark and the council staff. I have here a petition signed by approximately 650 people, which I'll give to you, presumably, Mark. And I'd like to make it clear that while we did attend the Nanango market to obtain signatures, most of these signatures, we didn't go out and hassle people to bring them. Most people came into our office when they knew we had a petition going. Secondly, I want to make it clear that I don't doubt the sincerity of the councillors and their wish to do the right thing by their community. And I really do want to make that clear, because I have heard that some councillors have had some bad feedback on this, but I want you to know that on this situation, as in all situations, it's really the issue that I'm against, the decision that was made, but not the councillors or their dedication to their community. I've written to, in saying that, I have written to all councillors, and I think you're all pretty well aware of my view, and I'm pretty disappointed that I really only had response from one councillor, and I was a bit disappointed in that. I have had some tell me different reasons for why the water went up. One is the fact that they said that water is precious. And honestly, I really don't think that anybody knows that more than somebody who lives on a small acreage block with no rain or no decent rain for many years, not enough money to come in to order a load of water, and they put a small pod, and some of them travel 25 kilometres in and then 25 kilometres home with a load of water. You can't tell them that water is precious, because they are well aware that water is precious. To put the price up, thinking that that is going to stop those people using the water, the only ones you're punishing are the ones who can't afford it. You're not punishing those who can afford it. They can buy a load of water, or they can do as many loads as they want and pay $10 because they can afford to do it. The people that you are punishing are the people who can't afford it. In my opinion, the most vulnerable in our community. And if you can't look after the most vulnerable in the community, who is going to? I've also had people tell me that water is for domestic use only. So I went to the Water Act, the Queensland Water Act of 2000, where it says that domestic purposes include water used in connection with a residential dwelling, including human consumption, cooking, toilets, showers, watering of gardens, up to 0.25 of a hectare. So for those of you who don't know, that is 2,500 square metres, or half an acre. So they can use that for their garden to grow vegetables, so long as they're not selling it. So for those of you who think that people come in and get that water and go home and do gardens, I can assure you that most don't. Some may use it to keep trees alive that they've spent a lot of money on, and that's all they're trying to do, because anyone who uses Nanango town water, for one, know that you don't use it for anything but just keeping something alive, and you're lucky if it does that. I've also found, going through research, that water used for stock and domestic purposes, and when we're talking stock on small acreage, we are not talking a feedlot. We're talking a lot of times a kid's pony, or a house cow or a couple of sheep to keep the yard down. We are not talking a feedlot. Most of those people who bought on small acreage, the reason they did that, so their kids could have a pony or whatever. A lot of the places in Nanango too, bearing in mind, people bought these small acreage because it was a lifestyle they were moving into. They bought a kid's pony, their kid grew up. To obtain work or further their education, their kids had to leave home and leave the area. The parents are left with the horse. So, it's not like they're going out, I don't think. And if you look at Pony Club numbers, you'll see the amount of kids who've got horses is a lot less now. As I said, being in drought, those people who use the water and are on those acreages are well aware of it. You can buy a load of spring water, and I believe it works out at about $13 a kilolitre I think it's about 13 and a half kilolitres delivered to your place. Then you can use it for whatever you want. So, as I said, again, it's not the people, you're not stopping the people from using it who can afford it. You're stopping the people who are struggling, pensioners, elder people, people that aren't employed. Also, I believe that when you talk about water as precious, you know, council would be one of the main offenders for wasting water. I myself complained on many occasions of a leak in the main street, and that went months before that was fixed. It was not only leaking water, it also did damage to the road, which had to be repaired. Anyone who has passed the racecourse, there was a leaking hydrant there for a long time with people complaining, and that wasn't being fixed. So, you know, it's wasting water. Water is precious. Council need to take that on board as well. Also, council must take some responsibility for these people on acreage, because they were the ones who allowed, I think it's something like 5,000 small acreage blocks, probably more, in our region to be subdivided. You know, you must take some responsibility for that, because council, and I realise that this was individual councils then, but council were very happy to allow those blocks to be subdivided. Small acreage, they couldn't put sustainable dams on that were going to carry them through drought periods. They were happy to take the rates, and now you've got people living on these small acre blocks. You know, some people, when they moved there, they had a dam. Then the people next door moved in and built a dam. The people up the road built a dam. So now you've got something like 5 or 6 dams which have to fill before yours fill. And as you know, we just haven't had the rain. It's not their fault they haven't had the rain. Also, when a lot of these people, when they first moved in, and people moved here because it was cheap. That's why they moved to the South Burnett. They didn't move here because we've got great job opportunities or we've got great public transport or great hospital facilities. They moved here because it was affordable. A lot of these houses that you go to, whereas now you see, especially in Kingaroy, big flash houses. Most of these people on acreage are living in 2 and 3 bedroom small houses with a carport or maybe a garage. It's no good telling them to put in more tanks. They don't have the roof capacity to fill those tanks. Also, if they could afford to put in a tank, they would have had those tanks in by now. I think I'm probably getting pretty much to the end of what I've got to say. So again, Bart, what I want to come back is to you councillors. When the councillors stand, you promise to do your best for your community. And if you can't see that people who are struggling on small acreage, wanting water, which is, something that everybody needs and should not be priced out of being able to get it when they need it. People have had people keep water in stock, in storage, ready for if there's fires. Now I believe they're using that water because they're not coming in and getting it from the storage. Also, there's a danger of people going, water is something that they have to have. If they can't afford it, they'll get it somewhere. So if they go and pump it, maybe illegally, from a creek somewhere, you're putting their family at danger too from illness or disease from getting water that's not treated. But again, coming back to the fact that you guys all promised that you would look after your community. And, that's what I'm asking. I don't know about the other places, but I know in Nanango, we are not short of water. Those bores have plenty of water in it. That water is cheap. You only chlorinate it. There is no big water processing plant that it goes through. So I believe that if you're looking at, and this was another argument, that it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that people in town had to pay water access fee. People in town can turn a tap on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't have to put a pot on the back of their car and bring it into town. And I don't believe that the majority of people do resent people picking up that water. And if they are, I think they're bloody selfish. I think that, I've actually lost where I was. I think that, the cost of water, if it come down to it, you would probably find that the people in Nanango, with their water access charge and their cost of water, they're probably subsidising other areas in our region, which I'm fine with. If it's got to be carried across the region, that is fine. We're all part of the same region. But by the same token, I think if the people in town cannot cover and carry the water for those people who need it, who are prepared to drive kilometres to pick it up and take it home in 1,000 kilolitre or 1 kilolitre tank, it's pretty poor on our behalf, and if we can't look after them. think that's all I've got to say. But apart from my 600 and I think it's 656, you'll find there's the odd page, only has 11 on the page, but there's the odd page that has 14 on it. So across the board, I think you'd find the thing. Thank you, and I hope that you take my words into consideration. And again, I want to say that I don't believe for 1 minute that the people that are here are not here with the right intentions. Just maybe you didn't get the right information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Erkins. And you presented very well. Congratulations on such. Council will certainly now the officer's recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration and relevant action, and that will happen in consultation with councillors moving forward. I will just note that the petition has been received here. It is now in our presence. The principal petitioner is Deb Frecklington, member for the Nango, and that the petition has been presented to council on her behalf by Mrs. Jane Erkins. So the recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the CEO for consideration and relevant action. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Right, Councillor Duff.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Jane. Right, moving on to item 7.1 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the special council meeting held on 15 July 2020. Councillors have had a copy of such and had a chance to look through those. The motion is that the minutes of the special council meeting held on 15 July 2020 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Fryloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Okay, on to now item 7.2 at 63. Minutes of the council meeting held on 15 July 2020 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 8.1 on the agenda. Am I on track, Vanel? Item 8.1. So that is the portfolio report for social and corporate performance, people and culture, communications and media, finance and ICT. And it's my pleasure to now present such. Right, well, social and corporate performance. Council offers a range of diverse opportunities for the community to engage with elected members, and the mayoral Have a Chat forums are proving to be a great initiative, generating a rotating meeting place for open discussion with our community. In the past month, there has been positive feedback received in relation to the maintenance on our roads and the beautification of our parks and gardens, green spaces within our towns. My fellow councillors and I have now conducted forums across the region, with the next mayoral forum to be held at the Nanango IGA on Monday 24 August at 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Review of Council's corporate risk and internal audit framework. Council is undertaking a review and formal alignment of Council's corporate risk, internal audit, fraud and corruption, prevention, management and audit functions. These functions, including committee structures, are to be encompassed in the draft corporate risk and internal audit framework. The draft framework emerges from Council's intent to effectively and efficiently manage corporate risks that may have an impact in the achievement of strategic priorities, goals and objectives as defined in Council's corporate and operational plans. It is anticipated that the ordinary general meeting of Council in September, the draft policies will be tabled for consideration and adoption. People and culture. Council's People and Culture team have undertaken the following actions over the previous month. Employee development reviews have been circulated to all supervisors to be conducted over the coming 2 months with all staff. This process has been actively promoted over the past several years and allows for every staff member to have a review of their role and discuss issues or initiatives that will assist with the delivery of service within council and to our community. The annual review of the workplace health and safety policies is underway, as well as the review of the induction process for volunteers. Part of the review has been a strengthening of the cultural diversity section of the review and also standardising the process for a volunteer working within council's safety systems. Over the coming weeks, council will also be recognising staff who have completed 10, 20, 30 and 40 years of service to our community. These are significant milestones in any person's career, and this year is the second year that we have celebrated this service. South Burnett Regional Council has projects nominated in the Local Government Awards for excellent. These are RPA implementation for asset data acquisition and stores restructure. Congratulations to our staff on these great initiatives. The winners and finalists of the awards for excellence, along with the Management Challenge and Young Manager of the Year, will be announced on 27 August. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, this will not be at a traditional sit-down function. Instead, this will be an event in-house to showcase the work that our staff have done and celebrate the projects and teams nominated. Communications and Media. In July 2020, the Media and Communications team progressed a number of, I'm not going to read all these out because there's a large number of them, but as you can see there, a number of media releases, 30 in total during the month of July, ranging from updates on the Alfred Street car park, Kingaroy, volunteers wanted to assist in our visitor information centres, publicising the Have a Chat with the Mayor, details in relation to the new dam managers being appointed, information in relation to temporary closures where works are being undertaken, the wild dog and feral pig baiting program to happen in October 2020, the 2021 Queensland Great Awards are open, Have Your Say, Kingaroy Museum window skins. We've got the updates on the Lamb Street Mergen redevelopment. Council receives $3.31 million in COVID funding, mental health matters, Festival of the Dams, and so on. We had 25 media inquiries from across media organisations in relation to a range of issues relating to Target Mergen, ABC Radio in relation to the water feasibility study, the South Burnett Today in relation to the Mergen footpath, South Burnett Online, and also the MAR2 review had also put through a number of media inquiries. Social media, we had 58 Facebook posts. The most popular post was on the 10th of July, being great news, the Boondooma and Bjelke Peterson dams will fully reopen for overnight guests from Saturday 1 August 2020. That reached an audience of 20,900 people. Council's South Burnett Regional Facebook page ended the month with 7,740 likes and 7,988 followers. Council progressed 3 full-page advertisements in the South Burnett Times during June, and Council progressed 1 full-page ad in the Mergen Moments for what's on at South Burnett Libraries and 1 half-page ad for the region's dams. Council progressed 1 ad in the Country Life on 16, 23rd and 30 July for tender sale of land being the Coolabunga sale yards. In terms of finance, this month, monthly report is designed to illustrate the financial performance and position of South Burnett Regional Council compared to the adopted budget at an organisational level for the period ended 31 July 2020. This financial report is prepared based on interim financial results as at 31 July 2020. Overall, recurrent revenue is tracking low at 1%, of course largely due to no rates being levied this financial year, as well as minimal operational grant income. The rates notices for the first half of the financial year are due to be processed in August. Rental income is tracking slightly above target at 12% due to timing in annual leases. Overall, recurrent expenditure is tracking slightly above target at 9%. Materials and services is tracking slightly high at 9%, largely due to annual expenses for insurance, LGAQ membership, and land valuations, as well as increases in disaster management expenses, which will be offset by operational grant income in the coming months. Accounts receivable debtors 90-day balance has decreased slightly this month, following up on outstanding debts has now recommenced. Rates in arrears currently sitting at $5,413,000 or 9.56%. This has again decreased since the previous month. The current monthly ratios are tracking on target, except for the debt servicing and interest coverage ratios, which is sitting above the target benchmark. These ratios should start coming back into favourable range once the rates have been levied and the operational grant income starts being received. Of the total adopted capital budget of $38.2 million, 18% has been spent to date, including committed costs. Works for Queensland Round 3 has $4.98 million of actuals to date, with a further $347,000 in committed costs. It is my pleasure to present that portfolio report to the many of Council, and I would now hereby move that that be accepted by Council. Do I have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Those in favour? Good. Thank you all. Moving now on to item 8.2 on the agenda, which is the proposed Christmas closure and staff Christmas function. Officer's recommendation is that Council close customer contact centres, admin offices, depots and library facilities on Friday the 18th of December 2020 at the following times for the purpose of allowing Council employees to attend the staff Christmas function: Blackbutt at 11:30am, Kingaroy 12:30pm, Mergen 11:15am, Nanango 11:45am, Proston 11:15am, Wondai 12pm. That Council's customer service centres, admin offices and library facilities close from midday, Thursday 24 December 2020, reopening normal operating hours on Monday 4 January 2021. Key skeleton staff are rostered on to undertake on-call and emergency work where required during the Christmas close-down period. Park staff will be required to work as advised through the Christmas period, with the exception of public holidays. Operational outdoor staff will operate on a skeleton staff arrangement from Monday 21 December 2020 through to Friday 1 January 2021 inclusive. Employees are to use accrued leave entitlements, for example, annual leave, time off in lieu and RDOs during this period, with time off in lieu and RDOs being used in the first instance. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henshin. Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 8.3 on the agenda is the Australia Day nomination forms and locations. It is the officer's recommendation that the 2020 nomination forms be approved and that the location of Australia Day Awards ceremony be held at the Wondai Memorial Hall on the evening of 25 January 2021. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Does any councillor wish to speak to the matter? Yes, Councillor Shoemaker.
I just wanted to acknowledge how excellent the Australia Day Awards are and how it's really important that our community really gets on board and tries to think of people who are worthy for nomination. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to acknowledge our region's champions, and I just encourage our community to get on board, and when nominations open, please do nominate that person. I must admit, I sat at the awards earlier this year and I was really disappointed in myself because as I sat there, I thought of a number of people that I should have nominated and that I will be nominating this year. So just like to make that acknowledgement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Well said, and I'm sure that your views would certainly be shared by all in the chamber this morning. Those in favour of the motion? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Moving on now to item 8.4 at 114 is the adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Style Guide. This has been a work in progress for a period of time. The officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council Style Guide, July 2020, be adopted. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Does any councillor wish to speak to the matter? Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 8.5 at 162, adoption of the Policy Governance Framework. So policies form an important part of Council's governance framework by providing direction on the implementation of legal obligations and day-to-day operations. Council recognises the value of relevant and standardised statutory, strategic and administrative policies to assist Council representatives in the performance of their responsibilities. This policy governance framework, entitled The Framework, establishes and combines a hierarchy of policies, procedures and supporting documents which must be developed, deployed, monitored and revised in accordance with the framework. The framework applies to all council representatives who are involved in planning, developing, authorising and implementing policies. It is the officer's recommendation that the South Burnett Regional Council Policy Governance Framework Strategic 006 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak to the matter? Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 8.6 is adoption of the acceptable request guidelines. So the acceptable request guidelines are intended to provide clear guidelines to councillors and council employees about the way in which a councillor may ask a council employee for information to assist the councillor carry out his or her responsibilities under Section 170A1 of the Local Government Act 2009, the Act, and ask the Chief Executive Officer to provide information that the local government has access to relating to the local government in accordance with Section 170A2 of the Act. It is the responsibility of all council employees and councillors to abide by these acceptable request guidelines. Now, if I can speak in relation to the proposed guidelines, include a number of items here. Now, of course, it's important to note that these guidelines have been developed pursuant to reforms that are being undertaken by the state government in relation to the Local Government Act, known as the Belcara reforms. In addition to that, it is a rolling suite of reforms, and when the next stage of reforms roll through, there will be a requirement after October for Council to again review this policy in response to those further reforms. This policy provides such that are intended to provide clear guidelines to councillors about the way in which a councillor may, as I've said, ask a council employee for information and ask the Chief Executive Officer for information. Now, it includes provisions such as councillors may request information from a council employee only in accordance with these acceptable request guidelines, utilising a record of request for information form. All requests are to be submitted to the relevant General Manager or the CEO. We'll note that at the back of the policy there is a schedule of which items are covered by which department, which General Manager. Clause 3.4, the General Manager or CEO to which the request is made must comply with a request for information from a councillor as per Section 170A of the Act. Now, this is new in that it does come out of the Belcara reforms in terms of amendments to the Act. So we've got 3.4A, within 10 days after receiving the request, or if the General Manager or CEO reasonably believes it is not practicable to comply with the request within 10 business days, then within 20 days after receiving the request, And C, if the General Manager or CEO forms the belief mentioned in 3.4b, the General Manager or CEO must give to the councillor requesting the information a notice about the belief and the reasons for which the belief within 10 days after receiving the request. So in other words, I suppose put simply, 10 days from receipt of request. Should that not be able to be fulfilled, then the councillor is to be notified within those 10 days that it will take further time up to the 20 days. A couple of other points that I'd like to note is that councillors should, as for a member of the public, make contact with councillors' customer contact team to request a progress update or further report on an issue in relation to an existing CRM. So we're talking about customer requests for service now. If the councillor is not satisfied with the progress update, the councillor may make direct contact with the relevant General Manager to discuss their concerns in relation to the CRM. 3.14, councillors may be given approval in writing by the CEO or the relevant General Manager to request information from a council employee other than General Managers in specific circumstances. And it does go on then to talk about examples of those circumstances. 3.16, other than in accordance with these guidelines, councillors shall not direct or attempt to direct any council employee to do anything except for the Mayor, who is entitled to direct the CEO in accordance, and only in accordance, I must point out, with a resolution or a document adopted by resolution of the local government, in other words, of council. Councillors shall not behave towards council employees in an overbearing or threatening manner, should not coerce or entice or attempt to coerce or entice any council employee to do anything that does not comply with these guidelines. Council should not place or attempt to place any council employee in a position that would create a conflict of interest for that council employee or would compromise the integrity and honest performance of the council employee, and not direct or pressure a council employee in relation to their work or recommendations they should make or action they should take. 3.17, a mayoral direction may be given to the CEO, but only in fulfilling the mayoral responsibilities outlined in section 12(4)(c) of the Act, and any directions issued by the Mayor to the CEO will be in accordance with section 1.7 of the Act and recorded in a register of directions. Where councillors are dissatisfied with the response from the General Manager or CEO for a request for information, the councillor may report their dissatisfaction, complying with council's complaints management policy. If the Mayor or a councillor behaves inappropriately or asks for information from a council employee other than under these guidelines, the council employee must inform their manager, General Manager or the CEO about the request as soon as practicable. Now, that, of course, is not all of the provisions contained within the policy, but some items that I believe needed to be raised and spoken to as part of putting the policy forward. So we have an officer's recommendation to the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines, statutory 004, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover for such?
Mr.
Well, no, we need to put it to, it needs to be moved or seconded, Mr. CEO, before we can enter debate.
That would normally be the case, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
depending, I suppose, procedural or substantive.
Do you have a procedural matter, Councillor Duff, or a substantive matter?
An amendment to the policy, is that procedural?
So if it was an amendment to the policy would be moved and then the amendment would be dealt with in its own. So the policy would then be amended. So the policy would be moved and then councillor would amend this section of it if that's where she's going.
Thank you, CEO Mark. So that being the case, I'll now move that the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable progress guidelines statutory 004 be adopted as presented. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Duff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to two amendments. I'd like to add in 3.14 add an A, that a councillor may be given approval by the CEO or relevant General Manager to work with the relevant manager or specific council employee on specific projects. And the reason why I wanted to add that one is because I don't think in 3.14 it covers off on working with, it only covers off on information. And there's quite a number of situations where Councillor Potter and I, for example, are working with Linda O'May on the drought dinners. I know that Councillor Henson has been working with Chris Duplessis on some wild dog strategies. So I just think that the council should be able to be given approval by the CEO or relevant general manager to work with the relevant manager in a specific instance. That's the first one. And the second one, I would just like to, in 3.13, change the wording to, rather than portfolio councillor, to any councillor, may request from the relevant general manager information that could reasonably be considered of a nature that is readily available. The relevant GM may use his discretion and provide a response at the time of the request. And the reason why I'd like to add that one is because, for example, if tomorrow Councillor Froloff was going to a NATTA meeting and she wanted to find out from the General Manager O'May when a capital works was likely to happen at Butter Factory Park, just something that was already known, but she just wasn't sure and she just wanted to get that information quickly, that she could actually ring a GM to get that rather than that being a breach. So just wanted to add those two amendments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. CEO Mark, Mr. CEO, do we attend to the amendments before we invite other councillors to speak?
You would need a seconder and then attend to the amendment, and then if the amendment's won or lost, if it's won, it becomes part of the substantive resolution. If it's lost, well, it falls back to the substantive resolution.
Right, being the case, Councillor Duff has moved those amendments to items 3.13 and 3.14 of the policy. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Right, so I'll now ask those councillors wishing to speak for or against the resolution, including the amendments, Mr. CEO?
If we deal with the amendments first, Mr. Mayor, so it'll be for and against the amendment.
Yep. Okay, do we have any councillors wish to speak for or against the motion put on the table by Councillor Duff in relation to those amendments? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge that I agree with the amendments put on the table. I think it's really important that councillors maintain a really good working relationship with the GMs and have that opportunity just to call out at times when we actually need to access information and a portfolio councillor might not be available. So I'm supportive of those recommended changes to the policy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. I would like to speak, perhaps not against, but to speak perhaps to some additional minor amendments, if I could, Mr. CEO, in relation to what Councillor Duff has proposed. I do have concerns that the intention here is to certainly give access to the opportunity to divisional councillors to work with, and in relation to 3.13, to request information from the General Manager. My only concern there is that portfolio holders are the primary mechanism through which council functions and is required to function under the Local Government Act. So while, yes, we have divisional councillors, and yes, our election process is one whereby councillors are elected in divisions, it should be very clear, or the Act makes very clear, that councillors have a responsibility to work right across the region, and our portfolio structure under policy is the mechanism by which councillors fulfil those duties. Specifically, my concerns then are that it's very important, I feel, that if we make these amendments, that the portfolio holder is communicated with, or is at least, for want of a better term, copied in on correspondence, conversations, or kept, again, for want of a term, in the loop in relation to the activities of a divisional councillor in relation to their portfolio. So, for example, if Councillor Froloff, to use the example you raised, Councillor Duff, is going to an ATTA meeting and she wants information about projects happening in Butter Factory Park, that you should also obviously be aware of that information and the fact that that matter is being discussed at an ATTA meeting, because Parks and Gardens is your portfolio. So perhaps if we could include in those amendments a statement to the effect that the portfolio councillor is to be communicated with appropriately in relation to those matters. The approval of the mover and seconder, we could have
with the I was too slow on my button. With the approval of the mover and seconder of the amendment, that can be just folded straight into the amendment. Yep.
Very good. Councillor Duff, do we have your approval? And Councillor Shoemaker, mover and seconders, Councillor Potter, sorry. Yep. Comfortable with that? Okay. Right. So that being the case, does any councillor wish to speak for or against the amendment? Proposed amendment? Councillor Froloff, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I do understand where you are coming from, but I do have concerns. I've got a good rapport with my general manager of water and waste management, and I've also got a very good rapport with the manager of, especially with water and wastewater. So my concerns are of just in case my general manager is away or is sick and I need to get information about something with the water and waste or waste management, whatever, that it'll take more time to try and get that information if I can't get onto the general manager, where I would be wanting to talk to my manager that is in my office. So I just don't know how that would work.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Froloff. I would expect that that's certainly acknowledged by your colleagues. Having said that, I think still important that the portfolio councillor is communicated with and kept informed, because effectively what we've got is that 3.14, a councillor can then be given approval by the CEO or relevant general manager to work with the relevant manager or specific council employee on specific projects. Now, in my view, it's important that if a divisional councillor is doing that, that they need to make sure that the portfolio council for that particular area, so in your case, Councillor Froloff, if Councillor Duff is working on a water matter in Mergen with the manager for water infrastructure, that you are also communicated with in relation to what's happening as the portfolio holder for water. And I think that's important that we do have that included in those changes to the amendment. Similarly with 3.13, the proposal is that it's changed, rather than a portfolio councillor may request, change to any councillor may request information from the general manager. That could be reasonably considered of a nature that is readily available. Now, again, I think it is appropriate that if a divisional councillor is requesting information from a general manager, that the portfolio holder is included in that correspondence. Indeed, the legislation, I believe, does require that if a councillor requests information from a staff member, for example, a general manager, that information is then to be, when the information is provided, it is to be shared with all councillors. So we've got to be careful there at 3.13 that if we don't include that, we could in fact, Mr. CEO, be in breach of the legislative amendments.
Mr. Mayor.
So it should. So in fact, the provision of that information should then be shared with all councillors. Is that not correct?
Mr. Mayor, I was just talking about the ones that are like information that's readily available to all councillors. This is just where a councillor just wants to be reminded of something that was, like, for example, Butterfactory Park, like if there's, when that work's likely to happen, or that it's going to happen next week, and she's going to a NATTA meeting. It's just stuff that is readily available, it's going to happen, but she's just wanting to be reminded, not stuff that is of nature that's not readily available anywhere. It's just, yeah, that's the difference.
Yes, ma'am, without entering for or against the debate, the only thing too is there's 314A, given hadn't had time to type up. This is an information request policy, and part of the genesis of these discussions and the review of the policy is the multiple way in the modern age that council staff receive requests. So the practicalities, we're going to roll this out, and had spoken to the Mayor, agreed fully with his comments earlier that there will have to be a review. There's legislative change coming in any which case in October, so we'll just need to ensure that our suite of policies are consistent with that change. My only, well, I won't say concern with it, is the work with. This is an information request policy, not a go out and dig a hole in the road policy. Now, I'm not being flippant. This is about requesting information. So we get information requests by the practical day-to-day operations of council. We get information through the customer request system. I've got probably about 5 different databases that I check for information, for requests for action. This also picks up some of the things. We get emails, we get texts, we get social media requests now, we get a raft of different things. And part of the genesis for the review this time, correct me if I'm, Mr. Mayor, if I'm off the path, but it was to try and, not herd is the right word, but actually get that going through its appropriate process. So if a councillor rings me and I end up with these, I'll end up direct email. Now, there's a pothole on the highway between Mergen and Wandai. Terrific. That's fine. Happy to know about it. I then send it through to records, who then register it, who then send it through to customer requests, who create a task, they send it back to infrastructure. So we've actually been process mapping internally a lot of these systems as far as trying to, part of the delay. So if I'm out and about and I'm at a WebRock meeting or one of them multitudinous things that are in the diary every week, that email can sit there for 2-3 days because I accept my own limitations with email. I don't always get to respond to email very quickly. If they send it straight to the information at email address, it would be dealt with by records and it would actually make the process quicker, more efficient, and the customer would get a better result. They would get their IR number. So the aim is the fact that we're feeling a lot of duplicate requests now because a lot of people are actually, I won't say councillor shopping, but the same request is coming through about 2 or 3 times with regard to the same issue. Now, the issue may have been dealt with previously, it may not have been dealt with well, it may have been dealt with well. That's always under review. There's systems and structures in place, and it's beholden upon the organisation and the staff to actually respond. This year, with the customer service charters coming in this year, there's a range of things that, for the 2 years I've been here, and I speak for the other general managers as well, is to improve this level of service. It is an area that we want to continue and to improve and deliver. The one there with the council with your, it's fine. It work with for information. We will get requests for a capital upgrade. Oh, we would like this road sealed. How much is that going to cost? That request cannot be dealt with in 10 days because we will be just giving you a best guess answer. As far as that then should go through the budget process, it'll end up in a workshop somewhere. It'll be costed out and dealt with properly, and then council will make a decision through its appropriate mechanism. Well, not appropriate mechanism now, but it will make a decision through its own processes about whether it gets a Guernsey, what the information, what the background. Information being shared between all councillors and the senior staff is a very good thing because everyone's on the same page, because quite often we all get lost as to, and I know it's been a point of frustration at both councillor and officer level, is that there are things being done out there that no one has any idea about until they turn up somewhere and we get a letter or a response from the community about there's a perception being built that this has been promised or this has been undertaken or this has happened. And where did this come from? I've heard that feedback from both councillors and staff. So the policy itself is an attempt, and again the mayor flagged it before. Legislative changes with all these things. We're dictated by you as how you want to work. This one is your policy. This really is your policy. But with the 314A. The general manager, I would suggest to work with the relevant manager rather than specific, if we're going to have specific projects in there, on specific project information, because this is an information request policy, not a digging a hole in the road policy. If that makes sense, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it does. I think in terms of the intent of the policy, it's clearly to address the matters of requests by councillors for information. I'd certainly agree that would be appropriate. Councillor Jones?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just want to back up what CEO Mark's just said. There's probably been times where certain people or some people have abused the privilege or the right to have very, very close, good working relationships with staff, and it's probably caused a few issues in the past. I have no doubt about that. I just want somebody to make this quite clear to me that if I go and speak to my manager or my general manager and I'm just having a general conversation, talking about roads, talking about my portfolio or whatever, is that breaching this legislation? Or, because the water's getting very murky here at the moment with all these extra changes and add-ons and all that sort of stuff. Like, from where I've come from in the last 4 years and the way I've worked with staff and worked very hard to get a relationship that I have built on trust, this is going to make it very difficult to move forward and continue doing your job. Now, we have people in the community telling us that staff tell us what to do and all this sort of stuff, and it makes it very, very unclear. So could I get an explanation from either the CEO or yourself, Mr. Mayor, in regards to where is my limitations as far as a portfolio holder talking to my manager and general manager and just having a general conversation? And I understand that if I send an email and ask for requests and all that, there's a certain guidelines for that to happen. But if I go and have a general conversation and I get to talk about roads and we get in there and involved in, oh, Kev, you know what's going on down there or whatever, just as I do, is that a breach or where do I stand on that?
Look, I think I might just open up the response by saying that this policy is intended to address, again, requests for information. So I would expect that where a general conversation is being held and there's no request for information as such, that should in fact be shared with your colleagues, that's not going to be in breach of the policy. I'd be happy to stand corrected, Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, if a council has a customary request, I could not see any point in purpose, nor do I believe this restricts. There's a pothole on the road between Mergen and Wando, and they ring it through customary request, same as any other member of the public. If you're in the hallway and you're talking to the managers in regard to whatever section and, hey, how's it going? Yeah, what's the weather like? Getting plenty of rain? Yep, we've got to mow the lawns. Terrific. They're not requests, and this is my earlier point about requests for information. We get, and you're correct, Council, it is, the world is a much more complicated place than what it used to be, but we get a multitude. It's the volume. I suppose email is my biggest bugbear, the volume of email that comes through of requests, and there's requests in it. And I suppose as far as looking at an organisational, it is legislated now, the 10 and 20 days, where it's a specific request for information. That's fine. So if we sit, as officers, we sit outside that responding back to a councillor, we're in breach. So it's as much as, I took the policy as much as an opportunity to try and get, so if it's a customer request, it goes through that process. If it's a piece of correspondence that needs to go to records, it goes to records. If it's a request for information about a specific project from a councillor, well, then it's responded to. There's a process and it's responded to. So we know that it's just a general email and have you seen all the rain? The grass is growing. And okay, yeah, that's great. Noted, dealt with. Don't need to do anything with it, as opposed to what's the mowing schedule for the next 3 weeks because we've had a wet season and have we got enough staff to cover the extra mowing? That's a request for information as opposed to a general chat, for want of a very quick mark explanation.
Councillor Jones, does that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but yeah, it's going to be uncharted waters moving forward. It's going to be very difficult to do our job, and I can understand it's. We've acknowledged this as a council moving forward. We've discussed with the CEO and the amount of, I guess, emails and conversations across social media and whatever else has initially caused us a problem, and hopefully after our teething problems as a new council moving forward, that'll settle down and we'll get into the process of doing what we need to do. I think it'll hopefully settle down, but yeah, the new legislation of Belcara makes it very difficult as a councillor to do your job properly. Now, there's so many things that you need to worry about and you've got to keep looking over your shoulder, and the community expectations, unfortunately, think that you can have the right to change the world overnight, which obviously these sort of legislative changes certainly restrict you from doing your job how the good old days used to be. And yeah, I'm a person that I guess I do, and then ask for forgiveness later, basically. But that tactic is long gone, and it creates a drama for everybody involved. So it's just a process that we need to get used to and get our head around, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. I think it's important to acknowledge that these Belcara reforms have only happened because councils and councillors across the state have been obviously clearly shown to be acting inappropriately in directing staff, in requesting information for staff that was clearly inappropriate in accordance with the intentions of the operations of council in the Act. So in some ways, councils, not this council, but councils have brought this upon themselves and pushed the government to a position where they've had to now legislate to control that sort of behaviour. It is an unfortunate situation. Councillor Potter?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I do agree with everyone, but I'm just wondering whether this is something we can review in 6 months' time and see how this is working for us as a council, please.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. And I think that's a very good suggestion in that, as CEO Mark has highlighted there are more reforms coming in relation to Belcara, and it would be appropriate to review the legislation subsequent to those reforms. 6 months may well be an appropriate timeframe. Councillor Duff?
I just thought the first one, the item 3.13, if you just add the same down the bottom, the portfolio councillors to be communicated with appropriately, added that to that one as well, that would then cover off on what you suggested that. Yeah, on both ones, because that way then if you were concerned that someone had found out something that was just like the Butter Factory Park example, that the portfolio council would be communicated appropriately.
Right, any further discussion other than the additions that Councillor Duff has made, that item 3.13, so effectively the amendment is that item 3.13, we're taking out the term portfolio. So we're simply saying a councillor may request. Correct? Yes, Peter. General Manager O'May, sorry.
So I just had a question in relation, through you, Mr Mayor, clarification in the 3.14A, where it's to work with the relevant manager of specific council employee. That should be or. Yeah, that's my. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, General Manager O'May. We'll just fix that typo. Okay, so 3.14A now is an addition to 3.14 to say that a councillor may be given approval by the CEO or relevant general manager to work with the relevant general manager or specific council employee on specific project information. The portfolio councillor is to be communicated with appropriately.
Just procedurally, Mr Mayor, we won't, and for council's information, when you see the policy, should this be accepted, we won't have a 314A. Subsequent numbering will be renumbered.
Yes, thank you, Mr CEO. All those in favour of the amendment? Resolution passed unanimously. Now, Mr CEO, do we need to also pass a resolution in relation to the initial motion?
Mr Mayor, what the original resolution then becomes, so the amendment now becomes a substantive resolution, being amended, no right of reply. So, I mean, there could be further debate, but on the amendment. So Lionel, have you got the original up there? So South Burnett acceptable statute be adopted as amended, and then we'll add those clauses in underneath that.
Thank you, Mr CEO. So the officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines statutory 004 be adopted as amended. Straight to vote, Mr CEO. Unless there's any further discussion from council, those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Oh, 2019-2020, it's Implementation Progress Report for the period ending 30 June 2020. The South Burnett Regional Council's annual operational plan details the projects, services and initiatives that Council plan to deliver for the 1920 financial year, which of course has now come to conclusion. And pursuant to Section 174(3) of the Local Government Regulation 2012, a report must be presented to Council at regular intervals detailing the progress towards the implementation of the plan. And of course, now the year being finalised, that report has been furnished. All councils have had a chance to review such. The officer's recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council Annual Operational Plan 2019-2020 Implementation Progress Report for the period 1 July 2019 to 30 June 2020 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Does any councillor wish to speak to the matter? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge the staff's efforts in compiling this report. There is a lot of information about the activities that Council has undertaken in the previous financial year, and I just encourage the community to take a look. I think it's I did find it really quite insightful, particularly just being a new councillor to the team. So I'd just like to thank and acknowledge the work that's been done, CEO Mark, and encourage our community to take a look at the update. It's very comprehensive.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And Mr. CEO, I believe that the annual operational plan would be on Council's website, would it not?
That would be correct.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So again, I would just like to support Councillor Shoemaker's comments and congratulating the staff on the work done over the course of the past financial year in the implementation of such, and also, of course, invite the community to view the operational plan on the Council's website. It does have a lot of detail as to specific projects and initiatives undertaken by Council. Right, we've now put it to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you all, including Councillor Jones, very enthusiastically. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 8.8 on the agenda is the Queensland Audit Office's 2020 Interim Management Report for South Burnett Regional Council. And I should be keeping account on how many times I've said 2020 throughout the course of the meeting, but I should abbreviate it just to 20 or something. But the Queensland Audit Office have completed their interim audit work for the 2020 financial audit and present the 2020 Interim Management Report, detailing the results of the risk assessment and interim work performed to the 6th of July 2020. To date, there has been no significant deficiencies in Council's internal controls. Section 213 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 requires the Auditor-General to present to the Mayor a copy of the Auditor-General's observation report about an audit of the South Burnett Regional Council's financial statement. Now, that interim report is provided with the agenda and has been provided to councillors to review over in the preceding days. The officer's recommendation is that, subject to Section 213 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council receives the 2020 Interim Management Report from the Auditor-General, detailing the observation report of South Burnett Regional Council's financial statements as presented for consideration. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froelich, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Does any councillor wish to speak to the matter? The only comment I will make at this stage is to congratulate the staff in the finance area, General Manager Jarvis, on the work undertaken over the previous financial year. Of course, that financial year included challenging circumstances associated not just with COVID-19 for the final quarter, but of course with ongoing drought across the region, which has financial implications for Council. Also would like to acknowledge the work undertaken by staff, the Audit Advisory Committee, and also councillors in relation to the work by the Queensland Audit Office in furnishing this report. It's important to also note that the final audit will be undertaken and the final audit report will be issued by the Queensland Audit Office in September, I believe, Mr. CEO. In September for October. So that will come through. Right, all those in favour of the motion? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Moving on to item 8.9 and still on finance, the monthly financial report. The following information provides Council's position at 31 July 2020. I must say it's an unremarkable report on the basis that we are only 1 month in, so there's not a lot that we can probably to discuss at this point in time, 1 month into the new financial year. But the officer's recommendation is, of course, that the monthly financial report, including capital works, road maintenance expenditure and works for Queensland, Q3, as at 31 July 2020, be received and noted. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. If I could just comment that in the report there are a couple of items that I will make reference to. One, in the statement of comprehensive income, Council has a net operating result of a deficit of $5,689,993 for the month of July. But please, let's be clear that we have, as highlighted in my portfolio report, not received any revenue for much of any significance for the month. Rates notices are still to be issued. So we have had expenses there of $6,198,665. I'll have to get some better glasses. And of course, we've only had income of $508,672. So while the normal operations of council have gone on through the month of July, incurring expenditure, our rates revenue, which is our main source of revenue, of course, won't flow through until September and in the months after. The other items to note are in relation to the council's statement of financial position. Council's total current assets as at 31 July, $45,913,168. Total assets, including current and non-current assets, are $902,364,755. Total current liabilities, $11,582,238, and total liabilities, including non-current liabilities, of $60,991,633. So total community, we call it total community equity, in other words, the net worth of council's assets after liabilities is $841,373,122. So just to note there, that includes council's got cash at bank of $40,365,855. Now, just on that cash at bank balance as well, and there is a report on here. So the cash at bank is such that we've got, we started off with the cash at bank at the beginning of the period, at the beginning of July, $47,404,602. And that's decreased by $7,038,748. So the cash at bank has come back down to $40,365,855. And of course, that's for the, again, primary reason for that is that we've had expenses throughout the month of July, but of course we haven't received any income from rates revenue, and that won't flow through now, of course, until after September. So I just want to acknowledge that. Of the $40 million in cash, approximately almost $25 million is restricted cash, and cash available for use is about $15 million. So that's just, I guess, an overall summary of some key points to note in the statement of financial position. And of course, council's got a fairly strong cash balance there, which is nice to see, but should never be taken for granted. Right, so does any other councillor wish to speak to the monthly financial report for the month of July? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge, I've read, and I know it's only minor, but our visitor information centres have been largely closed due to COVID restrictions. And I just see there on page 5 that we had budgeted for, a total income that they would generate of $80,000. And I just wanted to acknowledge the incredible efforts of the volunteers, because if you have a look there, for the very short period that they've been open this year, they've generated $10,863 worth of sales. And I was just there the other week, and it's really impressive how many people are walking out of our region with merchandise from the South Burnett. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Yeah, I think it's a really impressive figure and a good idea of actually the drive traffic that's coming through the South Burnett at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and having a conversation at the mayoral have a chat forums yesterday morning in Kingaroy. We had some lovely volunteers come in, and they shared with us just how busy Kingaroy was and how busy the whole region was, with tourists flowing through the region across the weekend. We had 99 visitors come into the Kingaroy Vic on Saturday morning in just a half day, and I think they sold, from what they were saying, Councillor Shoemaker, quite a significant amount of merchandise was sold through the Vic. So I would have to completely agree with you that our volunteers do an absolutely tremendous job. And of course, the Vics are a very important investment and contribution that council makes to supporting tourism across the region. Right, if there's no further comment in relation to the monthly financial report, those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Linnell, right, so we've got just acknowledging that Gloria and Brianna are here. Oh, yes, okay. Would we like to attend to that now, Mr. CEO? Well, right, morning tea sounds good. So welcome to Mrs. Gloria Kirkness and to Brianna Taylor. Welcome to Council. And I'd like to now invite you to come up to the lectern, and Gloria's got a presentation to make. Now, Gloria, are you going to read a little bit about the presentation? Have you got that? Yep, that'd be lovely. Thank you. Yep, well, thank you much, Gloria, and welcome to you, Brianna, as well.
Good morning, Mayor, CEO, and councillors and staff. I'm here this morning to introduce the recipient of the National Council of Women South Burnett Bursary. But before I do, I'd like to tell you about the National Council of Women. The National Council of Women is affiliated with the National Council of Women of Australia and the International Council of Women. It is a non-party, political, non-sectarian, not-for-profit umbrella organisation with broadly humanitarian and educational objectives. New South Wales, the National Council of Women bursary program commenced in 2009, and it was offering 2 bursaries. This year it offers 40, so it's grown out of all proportion. One of these bursaries is the National Council of Women's South Burnett bursary. The recipient is Brianna Taylor, and it's my pleasure to introduce her. By way of introduction, I would like to read to you a little about her. Brianna Taylor. Brianna has always wanted to be a teacher. She is currently studying at the University of Southern Queensland towards a Bachelor of Education in Primary. She is planning to graduate in 2021. Brianna has lived in Kingaroy for her entire life. She has volunteered at Kingaroy State School as a partner in literacy and numeracy student through a program organised by the University of Southern Queensland. Prior to being involved in this program, she was heavily involved in the special education unit at the school. She attended community events when possible and played her saxophone on Anzac Day, Light Up the Dawn in 2020. Did anybody hear her? After graduating, Brianna wants to continue working in the South Burnett. Her main interest is to become an effective teacher. In her words, being a teacher is a way that I feel I can give back to the South Burnett for all the opportunities they provide for students in schools and other educational facilities. Congratulations, Brianna, and the very best of wishes for your future. We are sure you will make an amazing teacher.
Thank you, Gloria, and of course, Brianna, it's my privilege to present you with this award, and can I say congratulations on a number of points, not just in terms of the receipt of this reward, but for the contribution that you've already made to our community through the activities that Gloria's spoken about. I would think that would it be correct to say, Brianna, that you would have had some teachers in the local area who have influenced you in wanting to become a teacher yourself? Yes, and I think it's really heartwarming to see your commitment to our Indigenous community and also to others throughout the region. I certainly think it's wonderful that we've got a person here, a young person who's about to graduate from university and is committed to and keen to come back and work as a teacher within our region. I think that's absolutely lovely to hear, Brianna. So congratulations. I'm sure you'll do very well. I'm sure you'll be welcomed by one of the schools in the region with open arms, and I'm sure you'll make a significant contribution to our region and to, of course, influencing the lives of young people, the future generations of our region. Aside from being a parent, which of course you're not yet, Brianna, but I don't know that there's any more important role in society than that of a teacher. In fact, in this day and age where we often see sporting heroes held out to be, well, the heroes of society, it's my view that it's the teachers, the doctors and the nurses who are in fact the true heroes, and certainly teachers are at the top of that list. The contribution they make silently, they're the quiet achievers of our society and have a long and lasting impression on the values that future generations carry forward in our community. So having said that, it's now my pleasure to present Brianna with the 2020 National Council of Women of Queensland Incorporated South Burnett Bursary. Congratulations, Brianna. Sorry, would you like to come out here? Can we go out here and I'll get some photos? The days of social distance are still with us. He's got one of those. Resolve to close. Certainly a pleasure to do so, and of course nice to have those celebrations. There's wonderful young people in our community like Brianna. There are so many good, positive young people in our region. I feel that we're very blessed to have people like Brianna in our communities. Right, well, I'm going to move a motion now that we close the meeting for morning tea. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. All in favour? Thank you. Resolution passed. We'll now have a 15, 20-minute break, Mr. CEO, for morning tea, and we'll return at approximately 10:50 a.m. Thank you all. Okay, we're item 9.1, the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report. It's now my pleasure to welcome Councillor Jones to present his report. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, great pleasure to deliver the Roads and Drainage Portfolio for the month of August. Our capital works, Alfred Street Car Park, the rehabilitation of the car park, that project is underway, and there's great reviews coming back in there, and people have said to me that they have issues with taking the trees out and no shade going back in there, but I'm pretty confident that the shade structures or some sort of a shade will be put back in there once the completion of the sealed surface is done. The Mergen CBD, the footpath upgrade in Lamb Street, Mergen, project underway with final seal spray pave on the southern side. And that again, we've been up there a number of times. Most councillors have seen it. It's an absolute credit to the people that have been involved with that project, and the difference it's made to the streetscape in Mergen is enormous. So Mergen constituents should be very happy with that result. Our gravel resheeting and heavy formation grade, we've got Burrabri Road, gravel resheet, Franklin's Road, that's gravel resheet and flood damage. Freibergs Road, Glenmore Road, Memorandie Barkers Creek Road, Mergen Baramba Road, Niagara Road, Bourneside, Oakey Creek Back Road and at Ellesmere. So all that work will continue through July, August into September, and Niagara Road at Bourneside will take all the way through to December. That's flood damage and drainage construction, and that might be a good opportunity for me just to clear up a few things. In the past I've been saying with our flood damage we go out and we can't do certain amounts of work. What I've been trying to say is that we go out and make the roads safe for people to transport or whatever, or progress along those roads. We make it safe, and then we have to sit and wait for the state government then to approve the funding so that we can go back and complete the work. So we do go out and it's our responsibility to make those roads safe, and then we have to report to the state government and get the funding through. So just wanted to clear that one up. Also, we go on to our patrol grading. We've got Alice Creek, Bonaire, Boondoomba, Brooklands, Charleston, Crawford, Geelong, Ellesmere, Goodyer, Inverloch, Kingaroy, Kinleymore and Wattle Camp. A large amount of roads right across those regions. They'll continue through from July through August. And again, if you need to keep an eye on anything, you can get onto our website on the South Burnett Regional Council website and see when your road is due for a grade. The roadside slashing and boom mowing, we've got Banarkin North, Blackbutt North, Bunya Mountains, Nanango and Taromio at the moment. Storm damage description, Council has received funding approval from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority relating to the storm damage occurring in February 2020 on our road network. Work is currently underway with both council crews and contractors engaged in completing the work. So that just backs up what I was just saying, Mr Mayor, that we have an obligation when we do have disasters, mainly floods. We go out and make that road safe, and then we have to wait for the funding. So now we're just, that funding has just been approved from February. So that gives you an idea for the people out there that are watching today how long it takes to get the approval through from state government. The completed works for July, our capital works, Stebbins Street in Kingaroy, upgrade to the bitumen seal standard, curb and channel. That's a big improvement for Ken Mills Toyota out there. Memorandie Rail Trail, the upgrade of current footpath. Gravel resheeting and heavy formation grade. We had King Street, Memorandie, Lampards Road, Memorandie, Maidenwell, Bunya Mountains Road, Mergen Gayndah Road, Niagara Road, Regan Road at Coolabunya, Recreation Drive, Memorandie, Corndale Road, Memorandie and Old Esk Road, Taromio. They've all had heavy shoulder grades or, gravel resheeting. Patrol grading, we've gone through Abbeywood, Alice Creek, Bonaire, Boondoomba, Braguda, Coverty, Gordonbrook, Inverloch, Kinleymore, Maidenwell, Oakton, Speedwell, Stallworth and Wengenville. And again, a great spread of roads right across our region, not just in any one particular division. Our guys are getting out and ladies are getting out right across our whole region, so everybody's getting something done for their money. The roadside slashing and boom mowing, that was at Crownthorpe. So that's been finished, and pretty much, again, Mr Mayor, you can see through those locations, our crews are spread right across the region. And again, I will say, and there is, every now and then I get people in the community still saying and bagging the roads or whatever else, but again, our crew, men and women, are doing a wonderful job out there, and they are improving every single week, and I'm expecting big results in the next 12 months with the commitment of council to the level of funding that we committed 2 or 3 years ago. So again, in 12 months' time, the roads will get better and better. And we were at a Ag Network meeting, and I spoke to a gentleman that was always an antagonist towards the roads of council and said how bad they were, and even that gentleman has admitted that they are improving. So that's good news to hear. So yeah, we're not perfect, but we're certainly getting close. And congratulations again. I want to thank the men and women, both outside and inside the council, for doing a wonderful job, and we'll continue to give their support. So thank you. I'd like to move that my roads and drainage portfolio for August be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say about the Mergen footpath, it's fantastic, but I have noticed that on the creamy part that is in front of some of the shops, particularly where they've got outdoor dining, that it's getting a bit, there's some coffee stains and things like that. And I was wondering whether we could work with the shop owners and just maybe encourage them to to let them know what product they could use, but to actually clean in front of their footpath. And I think it'd be a good precedent to set if we could, even when we do the Kingaroy streetscape in particular as well, to actually be able to encourage the shop owners rather than, everyone saying, oh, council needs to go and do these gurneys, every 2 weeks. If the shop owners could actually clean in front of their footpath, we had like a sort of like make that try and get that happening. I'd just like a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duff. Thank you, General Manager Meehan.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, we'll take that on notice. I think there's opportunity there for us to look at, work with Peter and his team around footpath dining licences. One of the things we'll be looking at Kingaroy Transformation is where we grant a footpath dining licence or an occupation over an upgraded piece of council land, that there would be some sort of cleaning regime implemented as part of that. Obviously, when council invests significant money, and it doesn't matter what town it's in, we like that to look good. So quite happy to work with the businesses there. And I think, from what we've seen too, that and particularly Merg and the businesses have been very good to work with. I think we'll get a commitment there that we can all work together to get something done.
Yes, thank you, General Manager Meehan. I'm sure Councillor Duff, in accordance with our new acceptable request guidelines policy, you'll be able to work with General Manager Meehan and keep Councillor Jones appropriately informed. Thank you. Can I also just say that Councillor Jones has made it very clear, certainly in the new term of council, that the roads program is a long-term program that's going to take 4 to 5 years to roll out. We're now into year 3, and it is very much a work in progress. This new council, we've engaged a lot more in, I think, community, spending time out in the community, and that includes spending time on the roads. So Councillor Jones and I have been doing our Friday morning drive-arounds, where we've been driving off around the roads, all the gravel roads, particularly of the region, which is where the focus is right now, is building an improved network of gravel roads, particularly with all that the reshedding program. And then last Friday, I think it was, that Councillor Jones, Councillor Froloff, Councillor Henson and myself, we jumped in my old Prado, and off we went and toured a lot of the back roads around the Nango. And that was really great for me personally to see a lot of those roads, see the work that's been done, but also see work that still needs to be done and the work that's planned to be done. So I would encourage all councillors to get out, drive the roads. Roads are a really important part of our assets. Being a rural community, we all know that roads are a really, really important part of our infrastructure, not just for industry to move across our roads, particularly our primary production industries, our farmers, but also for our people that live out on those roads to be able to travel safely, to be able to get into town. And there has been a lot of work that's needed to be done in the last couple of years to make up for the work that, in my perception, perhaps wasn't done for whatever reason in going back in the early days of amalgamation. So good to see that last term council had committed to this program over 2 years ago, and I was pleased to see that in the budget this current council has continued the commitment in funding a significant amount of council's capital works budget to that reshedding program, and also a significant amount to the ongoing maintenance. And I know that once the gravel reshedding work is done, there are plans afoot to then move into the resealing of those bitumen parts of the network, including looking at, I would believe, General Manager Meehan, to starting to widen some of those narrow single lane roads that are identified as highly trafficked roads that are high on the network or high on the hierarchy. So a lot of really important work done. And I would say to the community, if you do have concerns about your road, please contact council, send in a customer request, talk to your divisional councillor, or always feel free to contact Councillor Jones. He's well across the road network. He's had me out the back of Highsville and Proston and Boondoom and everywhere travelling around roads, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get home because I didn't know the way back, but fortunately he knew the roads very well. He has an intimate understanding of all the roads right across to South Burnett. So to the community, please keep working with us as part of this really important priority for council. Does anyone else wish to speak to Councillor Jones's report at this stage? Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to second your comments and agree. I think roads are very important infrastructure that should not be taken for granted. Certainly, I'd just like to acknowledge some of the much bigger conversations that Councillor Jones is having at a regional level with yourself through Webb Rock and the other connections that we have with main roads around the other infrastructure from an economic development point of view that we can advocate, lobby and support for improvements in the broader network, which I think is really important into the future. So I'd just like to acknowledge the work. There's a hell of a lot that's not seen in the council chamber, and I think it's really impressive. I think we're on the right track in that regard.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Well said. I'm sure that we would all agree with those comments. Okay, well, those in favour of the acceptance of Councillor Jones' report, thank you. A resolution passed unanimously, and thank you, Councillor Jones. Keep up the good work. On to item 10.1 on the agenda now, which is the Community Arts, Heritage, Sport and Recreation Portfolio Report, and I'd now like to welcome Councillor Potter to present her report. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start off with the Public Libraries grant. So each year the State Library of Queensland administers an annual public library grant to the Queensland local governments to support the development of the high quality library services to meet the diverse needs of the whole community. To receive these funds, councils must comply with the State Library of Queensland Service Level Agreement, which can be found on the State Library of Queensland's website. So for the 2019-2020 financial year, the Public Library grant allocated to the South Burnett libraries totalled $166,300. To align with the South Burnett Library's collection development policy, these funds were used to purchase resources for the community that can be used for recreation, information and lifelong learning. As a summary, there were 6,306 physical resources, including fiction, non-fiction, magazines and DVDs were added to the collection, and many of these items are delivered to the library shelf ready, whereby the library supplier catalogues and processes the items for a fee. The percentage of the cost of this shelf ready service is deducted from the grants fund. There were 2,062 electronic resources, including ebooks, audiobooks and e-magazines that were added to the online platforms such as the Belinda Borrow Box and RB Digital, with associated annual platform fees taken from the grant. The movie streaming service, Beamer Film and the Storybox Library were purchased using the grant funds, and between them these resources provide thousands of free resources for the community to access online. The annual statistical return, and to confirm that the council are operating with the guidelines of the State Library of Queensland Service Level Agreement, councils have to submit an annual statistical return for each financial year. This is compiled by the regional librarian, which includes data reported on and includes visitation figures, collection statistics, program attendance, library opening hours and staffing levels. The previous South Burnett Library statistical returns are available on the State Library of Queensland's website. The First Five Forever outreach. To promote further the key messages of the First Five Forever initiative across the region, outreach programs held at early childhood education centres began on Tuesday the 11th of August 2020 with a visit to St John's Playgroup. Facilitated by library staff, sessions include storytelling, rhymes and singing, to aim to connect families in our community with the information, resources and support they need to build a solid foundation for their child's language and literacy development. Libraria. The South Burnett Libraries are excited to announce the new children's loyalty program, Kingdom of Libraria, launching in October 2020 to coincide with the school holidays. So watch this space and check out the library Facebook page and the internet page. Aurora Montage. And did you know you can now join South Burnett Libraries from home? Simply complete the online membership form to receive your South Burnett Libraries membership number, and this membership number allows you instant access to your library account so you can begin exploring the thousands of free resources available with your membership. To begin borrowing from any of our library branches to supply 100 points of identification and collect your library card. Before I go on to the next part, I would actually like to take a moment here to thank the library staff for everything they've done during the COVID-19 situation. They have really gone above and beyond, and the different courses they've run online has just been fantastic, and I'd like that to be noted. And also it's Seniors Week, and the library's got a lot of stuff on with regards to Seniors Week. The Community Grants Program Round 1 is now open. The Council recognises the important contribution community organisations and individuals make to our region through the provision of the Community Grants Program. With Round 1, 2020-2021 open until the end of this month, I would like to encourage our community to put forward their projects and events so that together we can make a positive ongoing contribution to the region. And I'd like to move that my portfolio report for Community Arts, Heritage, Sport and Rec be accepted. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes, thank you for that excellent report, Councillor Potter. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Okay, does any councillor wish to make a comment in relation to the report? I probably want to say just a couple of things. One, again, to encourage the community to apply for round 1 of the Community Grants Program, a very important program. Council allocates that funding out of our recurrent revenue that we receive into the council's budget, recognising that these community groups and volunteers, not-for-profits, play such an important role in the development of our community and the provision of programs and services and infrastructure across the community. So please, for those who are here today and those that are watching, please spread the word, go onto the council's website, contact our customer contact team, and certainly put your application forward for that. I'd also like to acknowledge the progressive work that Councillor Potter has been doing with the libraries throughout COVID-19, an absolutely tremendous program. Having monitored and looked at what other regional councils are doing across Queensland, I would suggest that this council, with the work of its staff, congratulations, General Manager O'May, CEO Mark, Councillor Potter, on the work that's being done. It's absolute best practice and extremely innovative, the work that's been done, and creative, absolutely magnificent. So thank you very much for that, and of course also the work you're doing in the arts and culture space. The council's very much committed to, and I know you're very committed to developing arts and culture across the region over the course of this term. Right, all those in favour of the acceptance of Councillor Potter's report? Thank you. Resolution passed unanimously. We now move on to item 11.1 on the agenda, which is the Rural Services, Natural Resource Management, Planning and Compliance Services Portfolio Report. I would like to now welcome Councillor Henshin to present his report. Thank you, Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. Pleasure to report the month of August Rural Services, Natural Resource Management, Planning Compliance Services Portfolio Report. Approvals under the COVID currency extension, the Minister added 6 months to all development approvals. Earlier this year, urgent amendments were made to the Planning Act in 2016 Queensland, the Act, to allow the Minister to extend or suspend periods under the Act because of the impact of COVID-19. On the 8th of July 2020, the Treasurer, also being the Minister, administered the Act. First exercised this power by issuing an extension notice under section 275R of the Act, extending development approval and compliance permit currency periods under section 85, section 299, abbreviated 2, or any other relevant provision of the Act, and development approval periods for completion of development referenced in section 88, section 342, or any other relevant provisions of the Act. Building development approvals for building work to which section 71 of the Building Act 1975 applies are excluded from the extensions. The universal extension is for a period of 6 months, effectively meaning that the currency period of all approvals currently in effect, or that will come into effect before the 31st of October 2020, are automatically extended by 6 months. Planning initiatives by Queensland Treasury to support economic recovery. The state has reviewed the planning system and released discussion papers on how it can support the state's economic recovery through a series of legislative amendments to the planning regulations, DA rules and the Minister's guidelines and rules. The planning regulation. Broadly, the proposed changes aim to lower the levels of assessment for certain low-risk land uses. It is proposed that a local government may opt in and apply the proposed regulation levels of assessment instead of their planning scheme provisions. The proposed changes identify expected uses like a food and drink outlet / restaurant in the centre, business and commercial zone where certain criteria are met, where only minor building work are proposed or an existing building is reused as accepted development or code accessible development. Broadly, the proposed changes aim to lower the levels of assessment by certain low-risk land uses. It is proposed that a local government may opt in and they apply the process planning regulation levels of assessment instead of their planning scheme provisions. The proposed changes identify expected uses like a food and drink outlet, restaurant, in the centre, business and commercial zone where certain criteria are met, where only minor building works are proposed or an existing building is reused. The opt-in recognises that some council planning schemes already achieve some or all the proposals to a degree. If a local government chooses to opt in, it is proposed that council must carry out the following actions. By resolution, decide whether to apply any number of the provisions in the planning regulation instead of the planning scheme. Publish a notice on the local government website stating the provisions in the planning regulations that apply instead of the planning scheme, and give a copy of the notice to the Chief Executive within 10 business days of the decision. The amendments in the Planning Regulation 2017 are proposed to have effect for 12 months, with the possibility of extension or local governments choosing to amend planning schemes to achieve similar outcomes, following for a subsequent review of the outcomes delivered by the provisions. The Council's current planning scheme already aligned with some of the planning regulation amendments suggested, and in some instances where the scheme does not align, the Council may wish to opt in to the regulation amendments proposed. A detailed planning scheme review is proposed to compare the proposed regulation changes with the existing table of assessment and land use outcomes to determine whether there are any changes Council may wish to opt in. DA rules. The proposed changes to the DA rules relate to the public notifications where there are no local newspaper and simplifying the public notification signs prescribed under the DA rules. Newspaper requirements under 2.1. Firstly, if there is a local paper circulating within the locality, the DA must be used to publish the notice. And secondly, if there is no hard copy, but there is an online version, this must be used. And thirdly, if there is no local newspaper, then a national paper can be used that is supplemented by a notice on Council's website and giving notice to residents in an agreed area. 2.22, sign on land requirements. Signage will be simplified and standardised with additional images, better for visualisation of development. 2.3, notice to adjoining landowners requirements. Public notice will now be extended to adjoining premises occupants, for example rental tenants, and owners with simplified contents to be more informative and easier to understand. 2.3, the Minister's guidelines and rules. The proposed changes seek to streamline the process for ministerial and local government infrastructure designations by allowing consultation and the assessment of the environmental impact assessment to occur concurrently. The second amendment relates to clarifying the process for local governments to make interim amendments to their local government infrastructure plans, allowing for particular amendments to occur in a streamlined way. The change to the MGR relates only to Chapter 5 in Minister's rules for reviewing, making or amending a local government infrastructure plan, LGIP Part 3, interim LGIP amendment. And with that, Mr Mayor, and fellow councillors and GMs, I'd like that my Rural Services, Natural Resources, Planning and Compliance Services portfolio report to Council be received.
Thank you very much, Councillor Henson. Some important initiatives happening there from the government. We have a seconder for such. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, well done, Councillor Henson. Does any councillor wish to make comment in relation to Councillor Henson's report? Yes, thank you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to send a question to Councillor Henson, and he can take this on notice. I was just following up on those Corellas and all that sort of stuff from the last meeting. If you've got any update on that.
Yes, Councillor Jones, I do actually. I've been in consultation with the department in Toowoomba in relation to the Corellas that was brought up at the last monthly meeting. And an interesting concept with the Corellas, of course, being a native bird, so to speak. It is seasonal. There's limitations to what we can do with any problem with, be it varmint or animals and animal welfare. I'm still in consultation with that particular gentleman from that department in Toowoomba, and it's been interesting to note, and I'm sure we will remember when council first got elected and we were in the Town Hall Common, in the sports centre of the sports fields, there were enormous amounts of Corellas. They were astronomical numbers that you couldn't count. When I mentioned that to the particular gentleman my conversation's been with in the department in Toowoomba, he made note that that was noticed around the entire southeast of Queensland, and probably because of several factors, one being the drought that we'd had increased the numbers into populated areas for food sources, and two, with that flush of rain we had in February, March, did just that for them as well to congregate, which we noticed at the Town Hall Common. All the sports field were about the only place of some survival mode for them at that particular stage. That also being said, there was also an issue raised about the koala bears. There's an amazing amount of koala bears, and this conversation was had with the same gentleman. The number of people that are sighting koala bears, and unfortunately they at times can be in the way of the public eye and public transport. We're looking at trying to implement some signage in particular places. I myself, being a rural producer, primary producer, have noticed an incredible increase in koala bears, which is wonderful. I can recall as a kid growing up, the only place we could see a koala bear was in the gum trees around the Cumbia tennis courts. Now I actually see them regularly, and in the last 3 weeks I've seen 4 koala bears cross the road. So yes, take it on notice that it's an ongoing conversation, but I have also noticed that the Corellas have moved out of town because at the moment the seasonal conditions, the summer crop of corn is being harvested and they're enjoying that much more than they are the green grass in the streets of Kingaroy and surrounding towns. So that's my response. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge that was a really comprehensive report from a planning point of view, and I know councillors had discussions in our briefing and workshop sessions around the importance, particularly from an economic development role, in terms of how our planning scheme and taking advantage of these opportunities to review some of our guidelines and alike and our processes and make sure that we are streamlining things and keeping things really simple in a way that attracts investment to our region is really important. So I do look forward to having continued discussions in this space, and I know Councillor Henshin and I had a discussion yesterday with the councillors around working more closely together from an economic development and planning point of view to make sure that you know, we're both across what's happening in the region, but also just really mindful of how the two work hand in hand in terms of delivering outcomes for our region. So I look forward to working more in this space, particularly around those LGIP charges and amendments, and I know we've had discussions about opportunities to progress that into the future. So thank you for the report, and thank you, GM O'May. I look forward to those discussions.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Henshin.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Shoemaker, can I just respond to that? And yes, Councillor Shoemaker, we have got some seriously exciting times, and I know being new councillors, you start extremely fresh, and it's appreciated to have previous councillors alongside of us for some direction, but there are some extremely positive things in the pipeline, and I'll be hopefully standing here in a month's time to be able to bring them along with Councillor Shoemaker a little further forward as a work in progress, because there is some positivity out there amongst all the negativity. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henshin. I guess just to perhaps flesh out some of that, Council is working through a process led by General Manager O'May and CEO, Mr CEO, in relation to the local government infrastructure program charges that were adopted, looking at how we could perhaps better structure those moving forward. Also, in terms of the potential consequential amendments to the planning scheme, those that may be required to work alongside industry in terms of commercial and residential development. We certainly are noticing across the region that there seems to be demand now outstripping supply in terms of real estate, and including residential land, which is good to see. There's been an upturn in the demand, and isn't that great to see across our region? I'm hearing that from builders, real estate agents, right across the region. So Council's working alongside that in relation to our LGIP charges and also our planning scheme. Keen to know, General Manager O'May perhaps, the opt-in option from the state government in relation to the planning regulation amendments, is that something that Council is or will be considering?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, it definitely is. It's something we'll be bringing back to council. We've just got to compare what the opt-in, what the provisions are looking at in relaxation compared to our planning scheme. So which ones that we need to consider, because some things may not be relevant, and there's just the implications of those. So obviously, if there is something like that you opt in and it's as of right use, then you are giving up the opportunity to have an assessment or condition that development. So you just have to balance that development in the right place and against easing the process. So yeah, that will be coming back to council to consider.
Yes, thank you, General Manager O'May. So pleasing to hear that there's a body of work being done by our planning staff in relation to whether council will and the extent to which, if so, we will resolve to opt in to those planning regulation, the relaxing of those planning regulation through the amendments in comparison to our planning scheme. So look forward to that coming back to council so that we can share that with the community. Right, well, thank you very much, Councillor Henshin. I think the other thing, of course, is that I know there's been a lot of work being done across the region in relation to overgrown allotments, in relation to planning for dogs and feral pigs. Also, a lot of work being done in terms of noxious weeds, I know. So thank you for the work you're doing there. I can just say that with the overgrown allotments, we don't always get to them as quickly as we like. Unfortunately, we do have some serial offenders across the region who continue to not maintain their lots, but council then picks up the task of then getting that work done. There are government regulations that are imposed upon our compliance team as to when and how they can actually go about mowing those overgrown allotments. We've got to go through processes. And the owner, the landholder, has certain rights that we've got to respect. So I would say to the community, please let us know, contact council if there are overgrown allotments that you think are a concern. We will tend to them as quickly as we can, but please understand that we do have government regulations to also work with. Right, well, having said that, again, thank you, Councillor Henshin. All in favour of the acceptance of Councillor Henshin's report? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 11.2 on the agenda, which is proposed changes to the 2020/2021 fees and charges with regards to the monthly pro rata of food licensing fees. So it's proposed that council changes the 2020-2021 fees and charges to permit the charging of food licensing fees on a monthly pro rata basis for new businesses. So a little bit of background is that the proposed transition to a pro rata licensing system for new food business licenses will be advantageous for the customer in that many new businesses will not have as large upfront fees, depending on when they make application in the licensable period. That is, under the current arrangements, if a prospective food business operator applies close to the end of September in the current licence period, then they would have to pay the full 12 months licence fee, and then also have to pay the next period's annual renewal fees soon thereafter as well. Council's Tech One system is able to accommodate a pro rata food business licence fee process, and this proposed pro rata food business licence fee system should result in a more streamlined system for the annual food business licence renewals and reduce the financial impact often incurred when opening a new food business. The following two tables provide the current and proposed fee set up in Tech One. Please note that the fees have not increased and are still the same. The difference is that the fees have been segregated out for the customer and council officers. And of course, those two tables are included in the agenda, which then shows the current fee set up, where fees are payable up front for the full 12 months. And then overleaf, you can see where the proposed fee setup provides for the pro rata of such based on the number of months up to and including the month paid to the end of September. So the officer's recommendation is that council approve changes to the council's 2020-21 fees and charges to permit the charging of food licensing fees on a monthly pro rata basis for new food businesses as per the attached table in the report. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge, this is one of the small things that I think council can do to support small business and kickstart, opportunities for food outlets and the like to think about, reducing the costs basically on getting started in our CBDs. And I just would really like to acknowledge that this is something that does allow council to give a little bit when a small business is deciding to start up in a town in our South Burnett region. It might seem minor, but for some of these businesses, they are taking enormous risks when they decide to establish themselves somewhere, and normally taking on enormous cost as well. And so I'd just like to speak for this change. I think this is a really positive outcome for our region, and certainly I think it does encourage, does show that council does support small businesses across the South Burnett. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and of course can also acknowledge the work that's been done behind the scenes on this matter by, of course, our Manager for Environment and Waste, General Manager O'May, and CEO, Mr. CEO, and the leadership team in bringing this to council as part of an initiative to provide more flexibility and support and assistance to small business. Right, Mr. CEO.
Just, Mr. Mayor, I would be negligent. This isn't, the credit all goes to the environmental health staff and the manager, Craig Patch. I would love to take credit for it, but this is all their work, and they should be duly recognised.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Very humble of you to acknowledge such. And of course, yes, important that we do acknowledge the Manager of Environment and Waste, Craig Patch, under General Manager O'May's leadership. Thank you. Right, all those in favour of the motion? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 12.1 on the agenda is the local disaster management, water, waste, water and Waste Management Portfolio Report. And I'd like to now welcome Councillor Froloff to present such. Thank you, Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, works in progress and future work summary for July-August 2020. The following are current and planned works. The current water main replacements for 2021 are as follows, and their expected commencement date. Kingaroy CBD project, Alpha Street, Youngman to Short, expected to be started in November. Also Kingaroy Street East Side and Kingaroy Street West Side. Then we have Haley Street Northern Side to be expected date in December. Haley Street South Side expected in January. Glendon Street will be hopefully started in February. Youngman Street North in September, and also Ream Street in September. Wando, we have Haley Street to Hodge and Scott Street will be commencing in November, and regional replacement of 700 water metres to commence in August. And the water team's doing really well with all these replacements. The restriction and dam levels as of the 23rd of the 7th, 2020, in the last reporting period, BP Dam is at 16.3% and Badooma Dam at 34.1%. Council will continue in seeking alternative water supplies with drought conditions continuing throughout the South Burnett area. Council is monitoring the water restrictions, and all towns still remain on level 3 restrictions at this moment. Also, Goodenbrook Dam is out 55% and Boo Bear Dam is out 21%. I'd also like to have tabled the water allocations and the financial year consumptions, and also the reactive works financial years to date to be tabled and will be available on the council website after today's council meeting. That is my portfolio of water, wastewater and waste management. Mayor, I'd like to have it adopted. Thanks.
Thank you for moving such. Councillor Froloff, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? If I can just congratulate congratulate Councillor Froloff and Coordinator Meehan, General Manager Meehan, in relation to the local disaster management. Of course, we have had a little bit of a heads-up exercise happen a few weeks ago with what we saw with some people inappropriately crossing the border into the southern area of Brisbane, and that certainly provided a little bit of a scare for us all, not knowing where that would go. But of course, through the work of the disaster management people across the state, under the leadership of our current state government, fortunately we were able to ensure that we didn't end up with having the cluster and the outbreak that Victoria got. So I'd just like to acknowledge the work that everyone's done at all levels, including, and most particularly for us, the work done by our local disaster management group here under the leadership of Councillor Froloff, with Councillor Potter's support, and of course with General Manager Meehan, who's always got his finger on the pulse well in advance of when these things pop their head up. So thanks very much, General Manager Meehan. And of course, in relation to the water main replacement, that's a significant program that's being undertaken. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that council, the regional council, did inherit a lot of old infrastructure from the amalgamated councils. These water mains are come at a significant cost to replace, and council's got an ongoing program which is primarily at this stage has been working right across the region. At the moment there's a focus on Kingaroy and some work at Wandai, and I know, I'd imagine General Manager Meehan, there's a body of work happening in terms of procuring the services and getting the contractors in place for that work to move forward. So thank you for that. It's a really important initiative, and of course it's part of what council commits to, along with roads. With underground water and sewage, of course, we don't see the work. It's not the pretty sexy stuff like parks and gardens and street transformations, but it's so important that we've got water supply is only there because of the work that goes on behind the scenes with replacing underground mains, with fixing sewerage pipes and lines and pumps, with testing, regular testing. There's just a whole body of work that happens behind the scenes in this space. And coming into council, it's opened my eyes up just to the volume of work that these guys do and the crew to keep our water flowing, and to keep our sewage systems working. So congratulations and thank you to the staff there. Interesting to note that Gordon Brook's at 55%. As you will all know, I have raised this issue. It is a concern for us as a region when we start to approach the nervous area of 50% on Gordon Brook, and it's something that we'll obviously continue to monitor and work with the state government on in coming weeks and months. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I agree with you on the Gordon Brook issue, but also the BP Dam and Fixed Crossing. We were looking at doing something there to save the water loss at Fixed Crossing. Is that still a work in progress, or where's that at?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So council note in its operational plan this year, I kept those initiatives in. So they are still progressing as they were previously. They're currently being costed. What the water team will present this year is, over the coming months, is a list of contingencies that they have developed. Some contingencies are not developed and may not be developed. There may be no solutions, but we want a list of initiatives. There's probably two main ones we're looking at the moment. Is obviously an offset at Gordon Brook for a possible project that we may do there. It's in progress at the moment, so it's going into feasibility. It's actually being test holed now by geotechnical engineers to see what that's worth. And the other one is being drafted up is the contingency line if we were to cease releasing below the Mergen Weir and take the water directly to Wandai from the Nanango treatment plant, from the Mergen treatment plant. So that option is still being looked at. It's not required at the moment, but very much what we've said through history's told us that we might end up, we've bought ourselves probably 12 to 18 months with the rain that we received earlier in the year. It's very much our intention, by keeping that on the operational plan, we'll report to council probably before Christmas to start workshopping through some of those options. So like I said to council previously, we want to get into that design and delivery phase right now, and then we want to start talking about assets and these op plans initiatives so we can start working through those over the next 6 months, particularly coming into budget next year, what we may or may not fund. And what those initiatives, if they need further work as well. So it's very much on the table. I will say to council, whilst our water supply is looking quite good there, the BP has dropped off considerably since February already. It was about 23% at one stage. We're back to 16.5. So we do watch it, and water security is a major topic within council, and particularly in our office, it has not gone off our radar. Understand that we may or may not receive rain again this year. We just do not know. Obviously, you'd like to be hopeful, but we will continue to plan for that on the basis that we have contingencies in place. And where we don't, council is informed of what they may need to do as a council to manage that situation.
Very good. Thank you, General Manager Meehan. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to note, so we've been on level 3 water restrictions since 2017, is that correct?
To be honest, I can't answer. I wasn't here when they were placed in. They've definitely been on level 3 since I've been here, and I was in here in late 2017. So I believe it's been some time, Councillor, yes.
Yeah, and so with the dam levels dropping, I know I've asked before, but do we need to start looking at increasing those restrictions, noting that we may not get rain for the year ahead?
Yeah, so it's our intention that during October, November, we'll start to commence a workshop with council through the possible change to water restrictions. At the moment, we have had a draft policy that was due for consultation. Obviously, with the change in council, we placed that on hold as council entered into caretaker mode at that stage. Post Kingaroy transformation, our workshop focus will be to move into those op plan strategies, and that will be one of them to come forward. So,
Thank you.
And the one good thing I will say to council is between now and December, we are not in a dire straight position where so we do have time to work through that. I think it's an opportune time for us, particularly coming into summer, to recommence that planning and put those awareness strategies back on the radar.
Great.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker and General Manager Meehan. Okay, so all in favour that we accept the water report? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. On to item 13.2, the Mergen Men's Shed, amendment of lease. Councillor Duff, sorry. I've done that to you 2 weeks in a row now, haven't I? Forget about you, Councillor Duff. You're sitting over there quietly. My sincere apologies. Item 13.1 is the Rural Resilience Parks and Gardens. Property and Facility Management and Indigenous Affairs Portfolio Report, and I'd like to now welcome Councillor Duff to present her report. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the first item is rural resilience. Planning is well underway for 10 minutes with a master to be held at some of our smaller halls and some drought dinners to be held at some of our larger halls in the months of October and November. Parks and Gardens, Kingaroy, Mergen, Wandai, Proston, Nanengo, Blackbutt and all surrounding areas. Parks and Gardens crews have been continuing the winter maintenance, which has included tree lopping, general park maintenance and prep of garden beds. Kingaroy playgrounds and fitness equipment has been hot pressure cleaned, and this will happen every 2 months. Nanengo and Mergen has been scheduled in the next month. Apex Park Cumbia retaining wall has been completed, which replaced the old rotted wall. The toilets have also had a pressure clean, and the garden preps ready for spring planting. The Carroll family bronze plaque that was situated at Apex Lookout was removed, restored and cleaned, and will be placed back onto a stone in a more prominent position close to the walkway. The existing track signage markers have been replaced through recycled materials, marking all the tracks, including the new step walkway. Red chairs. Highswell Memorial Park and Rurulan Town Hall have now joined Cumbia, Proston, Mergen, Wandai, Kingaroy and Nanengo with the installation of red chairs. Just for those in the gallery, they're a domestic violence initiative, and they are the red chair has a plaque on it to raise awareness for against domestic violence. Dams. Council received 14 applications and interviewed 9 candidates for the positions of dam managers for Lake Paduma and Bjelke-Petersen dams. Council is excited to announce that Doug and Kath Hughes have been appointed to Lake Paduma, with Heath and Rowena Sanders the new managers at BP Dam. Council staff undertook a massive job over the last month to ensure the parks were ready for reopening on the 1st of August and comply with Queensland health requirements. Health management plans have been completed for both parks. Media releases and updating of the online booking system, including the new guest declarations, has occurred. Signage and hand sanitizer stations have been installed in all amenities and camp kitchens to ensure hygiene and social distancing messages are consistent with Queensland Health. Guests are assisting managers with using the online booking system and are cooperating with completing the relevant booking documentation and obeying the signage and the new normal requirements to keep our dams safe and, most importantly, open. Cemeteries. Maintenance is continuing in all cemeteries, with the focus being on improving our lawn sections. General work. Parks staff are continuing to undertake duties as requested in response to the federal state government direction with COVID-19. Currently, all playgrounds, skate parks and open park space, including 48-hour stopovers, are reopened as per Queensland State Government Roadmap to Easing Restrictions Stage 3. Council has updated signage in all these areas to ensure a consistent message is received within our community. Staff are continuing to undertake spraying on playground and fitness equipment, amenities, table seating and street seating every fortnight using Biocin, which is a registered COVID-19 disinfectant. Rail trail. Cosmetic repairs have been undertaken on a section between Crawford and Memorandie, Gordon Brook Road, and is being monitored every 8 weeks. Damaged road signage will remain in place on this section until the surface settles. Public conveniences. Lions Park, Kingaroy amenities are now closed at night due to continued vandalism. Since QE2, Glendon Street and O'Neill Square public amenities closed at night on 12th of June 2020. There has been no reports of any vandalism or damage to date. Capital Works for Queensland drought funding. Capital Works for Queensland funding has now been approved and has been programmed for the next 12 months, and project progress updates will be given in the next report. Property and Facility Management. Council has called for quotations to replace damaged and rusted chain mesh at Wandai Swimming Pool. Council has recently called for quotation for bathroom repairs to Appin Street units due to extensive damage by tree roots to bathroom surfaces. Council staff have been working with local contractors to update business and WHS documentation into Felix system to allow more suppliers to quote on maintenance and repair projects. Quotations will be called for future maintenance works at Ringsfield House, Cloyner Hall, Proston Showground Pavilion. Council has received positive feedback on the Kingaroy Museum photographs that have been on display for members of the community to vote on their preference. Additional signs have been designed and developed by JS Signs for the Heritage Museum and Visitor Information Centre. Council has appointed project management and engineering consultancy services to assist in the planning, design, construction of several major building projects funded under Works for Queensland Round 4 and drought communities. Council currently has requests for tenders out for the sale of the Coolangatta Sale Yards, 20 William Street in Kingaroy, 41 McAllister Street in Mergen, and the Mergen Shed at 6 McAllister Street. Council will be calling for tender for the supply of services to operate and manage the South Burnett Aquatic Centre. The services will be for a 3-year period and options for a further 2 years. Council property staff and Lady Bjelke Peterson nursing staff undertook an annual asset audit of all items located within the operating day surgery and storage on the 23rd and 24th of July 2020. And finally, in Indigenous Affairs, councillors and senior staff are looking forward to meeting with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council tomorrow in Cherbourg. And that concludes my report. And I'd like to move my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. A very comprehensive report and some wonderful things happening across the region in your portfolio. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak to the report? Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, I just want to actually talk about the dam management. I think the committee that organised for Doug and Kath, that did the interviews, that did Doug and Kath, and Heath and Rowena for Bundooma and BP respectively, I think the choices they made are fantastic, and I think the community will really benefit from those choices of that dam management. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. If I can just further to that, say that I've Councillor Henson and myself and CEO, Mr. CEO, were of course at Bundooma on the weekend and received for the annual fishing freshwater fishing festival of the dams out there, and received nothing but overwhelming positivity from people who had come from the local area, as well as travellers coming into the region, on the quality of work that had been done by our parks and gardens, our sport and recreation team. Thank you, General Manager O'May and your team in preparing the facilities, but also by Doug and Kath, the newly appointed contractors there. The work that they did over the weekend was absolutely magnificent. People coming from outside the region were just saying what a great job they did. They kept the food up, they kept the facilities great. It was an absolutely wonderful weekend, and of course the place was booked out up to COVID limits. Managed very well in terms of COVID safety, but I must say Doug and Kath did a great job, so certainly reconfirming that. And of course, moving around Mergen, as I did last week, nothing but excitement from the people in the Mergen community about the appointment of Heath and Rowena. They're known to be very much progressive people in the community, and I believe, Councillor Duff, they've got some really exciting initiatives. We probably can't announce them now, but I believe they've got some really exciting things coming up, particularly in the month of October for the fishing festival. So watch this space. There's some exciting news coming, I believe, there. So again, well done to our council staff. I know that the process that was undertaken was a very open, transparent, and as our CEO often says, a very pure process, whereby it was done independently by the staff and was certainly very clearly achieved a very good outcome. Can I also just ask a couple of questions, and I'll come to you shortly, Councillor Henson. You mentioned there, Councillor Duff, in relation to some of the W4Q, Works for Queensland, state government funded projects, Bundooma Dam, Yallacool and the Bunya Mountains. Are you able to give us a brief overview of the capital expenditure that's going to be happening at Bundooma, Yallacool and the Bunyas for the benefit of the Chamber and the community throughout the course of the next 12 months? Do you have that information?
Yeah, there's upgrades to the, I know that the amenities block is being moved at BP and also at Bundooma, and I might hand over to the General Manager for the finer details.
Yeah, through you, I might just pull up a list, Mr. Mayor, to make it a little bit easier because there is a substantial work. So at the tourist facilities, yeah, at Proston, at Rodney Street, at the toilet block there, looking at a new dump point. At the dams, a bunkhouse relocation, look at relocating the old accommodation quarters, the old bunkhouse that was up at the top of the dam down into the main camping area, tennis court repairs at both dams, upgrade of the Yalacool boat ramp, some work in the Coronation Park and the free camping area. That's a total of 475,000 sort of on that tourist facilities. The Bunya Mountains, we had, there is the upgrade of Bunya Avenue there, which I can't off 100,000, probably 100,000 to upgrade that Bunya Avenue walkway to connect sort of the top of the top park down there to the Dandy Bar camping area. But yeah, there is a whole list of with the Works of Queensland program, just splitting up with that. We had the tourist facility upgrades, it was 475,000. Number of open space refurbishments around the parks around the region, 695,000. Park equipment playground upgrades, 505,000. And then a number of community upgrades and renewals in community buildings, things like roof replacements, new carpets, Mergen squash courts, which have been out of action for a while, the showgrounds, 1.58 million across those things. So yeah, big program Works for Queensland, 3.3 million.
Yeah,
over
so
the next 12 months.
to you, Mr Mayor, some of those are drought ones too. Some are drought and some are Works for Queensland. So they're not. Yeah, there's a mixed bag, isn't it? But there's a lot of stuff going in parks and gardens and dams.
Yeah, thank you very much, General Manager O'May and Councillor Duff. I'd like to acknowledge the support and contribution made by the Queensland State Government in relation to the Works for Queensland COVID funding. Our region was very fortunate to receive significantly more than I thought we'd get in 3.3 million, but the Premier said, I'll look after regional Queensland, and to give her a dues, she did. So we got 3.3, which is significantly more than some of the southeast Queensland coastal councils got, which was great to see. And of course, the federal government, with the support of Minister Littleproud and other federal members, with the $1 million for the Drought Communities Fund, a lot of that's gone into infrastructure and programs to support the community with drought. And of course, there's other federal government funding we received. So thank you very much to the Queensland and Australian governments for supporting the South Burnett region. Of course, Council is putting a significant amount of that, as you've highlighted there, General Manager O'May, clearly into the development of tourist facilities across the region. Boondooma, I know, talking with staff out at Boondooma there, Council's air-conditioned the cabins, there's new pathways, there's new en-suites and showers put onto all the cabins. The relocation of the bunker will provide accommodation for 32 people, right next to overlooking the water, close to the fishing facilities. The conference rooms being relocated down into the centre of Boondooma Park area. That's only going to enhance Boondooma, and it's going to go from, it's going to become bigger and better as a tourist facility, bringing a lot of people into our region. And, you know, I saw people on the weekend who were coming into Boondooma, stopping in Mergen, stopping in the Nango and Kingaroy. I was driving around the region. I stopped and talked to people. I was on the way to Boondooma, and they were getting fuel and they were buying a pie for lunch. On the way home, they were doing the same. So it's great to see that you know, pulling people into those key destinations, those key council facilities, is actually providing a benefit to the small businesses. That was the pleasing part for me. And of course, significant amount of investment in Yalacool as well, happening, Councillor Duff, as well as developing the council assets at Bunya Mountains.
And I think the other one is that I know that Heath and Rowena have plans to do up that rec room, and I know that the everyone's going to be pleased to see that happening, because it's been a bugbear for a long time that rec room has been sort of just a real mess, and they are going to spend a fair bit of time doing that up. So I think that's exciting as well.
Yeah, so that rec room will be a very important community facility where local groups, fishing groups and, you know, recreational groups will be able to use that council asset to have meetings, to host conferences. I know they're very keen to get corporate users coming in and having conferences at our dams, our tourist lakes, as I like to call them. So that's tremendous to see. Good to see that there's continuing work on the rail trail. I also met a number of people on the weekend who'd come in. They came in from New South Wales well before there was a COVID outbreak. They've been here for well over a month or 6 weeks, and they're not going home. They said, we're camped in the South Burnett, we're staying here, we're loving it. We've been travelling, riding the rail trail and having an absolute ball. And interesting to hear that people are saying that even down in southern New South Wales that they hear people talk about our rail trail. It's starting to get some you know, right across Australia, it's getting quite a reputation for a great tourist destination. Councillor Duff, can you also, if you don't mind me asking, I know I'm dragging this out, but keen to get more information about what capital works have we done on Ringsfield House and what is the plan in terms of working with the community moving forward for the use of what I think such a wonderful, important community asset.
Yes, we're actually meeting with the community groups on this Thursday with Ringsfield House. We're trying to encourage the community groups to step up, and because we're at the moment Ringsfield House is unoccupied, and so yes, we that's happening on Thursday. I think all the councillors are going to be involved in that.
Extend an invitation to all councillors to join Councillor Duff and Councillor Froloff in meeting with the Nanango community on Thursday of this week, so that we can plan out the future use of. It's an absolute. If you haven't been there, it's an absolutely beautiful, tremendous facility for the South Burnett, and I think we obviously. I hope we can work with the community to make that a real success. The other thing I had, and Councillor Henson, thank you for being so patient, was in relation to Indigenous portfolio. It was pleasing to see, in my view at least, that the state government announced in Parliament this week that they're going to be progressing forward with the path to treaty in terms of establishing a treaty for the Indigenous people of Queensland. Wonderful to see. We have a significant population of Indigenous people in Cherbourg and across the South Burnett region, importantly, and I think that'll be a really important healing process for them. Victoria has moved to treaty. Nice to see that the Queensland government are now progressing that. And I know, having been in contact with a few ministers over the phone on the weekend, they're very excited about what this can bring for the Indigenous people and the non-Indigenous people of our state. Councillor Duff, I will be reaching out to Mayor Sando in Cherbourg, and with the support of council, I would hope that we will all get behind supporting the Indigenous community across the South Burnett and partnering up with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council to help progress the path to treaty progress importantly for our region.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to also say that I think it's really great that we had a representative from the Kingaroy State High School this morning doing the acknowledgement to country. So we've got Max Conlon comes from Mergen Cherbourg, and then now we tried to get someone from this end, and I thought it was wonderful to have someone from the school do that this morning, and I hope we can continue that.
Councillor Duff, if I can just please call on the patience of everybody, and I know Councillor Jones is giving me a stare over there, but are we going to be putting soap dispensers in some of our toilet facilities across the South Burnett? When I look at the Black Butt, a wonderful facility, but I'd like to see some soap dispensers in there.
Absolutely, I think that's something we're trying to progress on, and I know that it's something that we need to do particularly with the COVID in any case, but I'm pretty sure it's in the budget, isn't it, to do soap? It's not?
Yes, I believe it's part of our general facilities program
was,
under Works for Queensland, Peter, was my understanding.
I think we might take that one on notice. I think that issue has been discussed by council previously, and they can, there is issues with that. But.
Thank you, General Manager Mayo. We'll wait and take advice from council from you guys.
Mr. Mayor, if you would allow me a segue, and it's a great segue, and actually we'll be releasing something, and if I can give the media a bit of a heads up. The councillor mentioned in her report, I was tossing up whether we should bring it up, but we have had extensive damage of these facilities now for a period of time that's costing quite a deal of time and resources. It actually does delay other programs because of the repairs. We've had to limit some toilets as far as the level of service, so they're being closed at night, more of them. I won't go into some of the graphic details of it's not just physical damage, but it's, for want of a better term, soiling of the facilities. Needle sticks, a range of things. We've got some images we're going through, not too graphic, but we do have a range of images, and as fast as sometimes we can repair, and this is where your soap dispenser comes into these conversations, fast as we can repair some of these facilities, they're damaged. The locking of them overnight is actually limiting the damage. Now that's a very sad statement. There will be a prepared statement coming with some of the details and some of the cost, but it's extremely frustrating for our organisation. It's extremely frustrating for the community. People see us closing facilities, and we probably haven't had the opportunity to. You can't sometimes convey it in a press release, and so hence if you don't mind me jumping in now and articulating, it really just causes no end of grief for the whole community because it actually, and it's only a few, I will always say it's only a few. Sometimes I hear people comment about the police, but I can only speak of the support that we get from the police services as far as following this up. We give all of these complaints are actually reported. We get numbers. They're all processed. They all turn up in the official statistics, which is important, but it is the after-hours numbers or the police link numbers. If anyone sees any of this sort of activity going on, it is sometimes easy not to try and be involved, but it would be really appreciated if people reported it through. If they report it through to us and wish to be anonymous, that's absolutely fine. But we would dearly love to. The increased costs in security cameras, the increased costs, and it just has a flow-on effect with the damage that's caused. And there's been a couple, and literally as fast as we fixed them, the next night they were ripped out. So it doesn't matter whether it's a shower head, whether it's a poly pipe, it's toilet bowls, sinks. We're not the only community that has this trouble. And again, I don't want to quite clear that it's not the whole of community, it's the few. But there has to be consideration put into place about how we deal with them, and part of that consideration at the moment is restriction of access to those facilities in the evening.
And thank you, Mr. CEO, for clarifying that so that there's broad understanding across the community that where council is closing some of these facilities after hours, it is only in an endeavour to minimise the vandalism that we've been experiencing. Yes.
Can I give you a good one? Now, this is just as only yesterday afternoon, I haven't spoken to General Manager O'May. I'm not sure at all, but we had a tentative inquiry given with the Festival of the Dams about moving a competition in September. It's only a very small comp, not a council paid for event or sponsored event as far as the $10,000 that we put towards the Festival of the Dam at Benduma. But would we be interested in moving it from Somerset to BP Dam in September? Now, I've got to talk to General Manager O'May about whether that's possible and what we have, but just for Council's information, the Festival of the Dams tag is now starting to resonate, and yeah, the feedback from the weekend, again, congratulations to everyone involved. It was an excellent weekend.
Yes, thank you, CEO Mark. And of course, the Festival of the Dams is an initiative of council to encourage tourism throughout our region, and the spin-off benefits are quite significant. Councillor Henson, you've been very patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it's quickly, on a positive, happy note. The Benduma Festival of the Dams, which we attended, was absolutely sensational. Just for a little bit of useless information, there was a gentleman there that's boat played up on the Saturday afternoon. He travelled back out to Roma to get that boat fixed and was back there fishing and in the water the next morning. When you build it, they will come. The weekend before, and I might also add, I did get on good authority that to run 10th, you had to have 21 fish. So there's a little bit of a landmark as a measuring stick, I should say, as to what you need to perhaps catch to be in the top 10. The weekend before, the South Burnett Mountain Bike Club then in the Wandoi Forestry, absolutely fantastic event. Again, build it, they will come. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Henson. And so it's just how important all this infrastructure is that council provides across the region in terms of promoting and developing the tourism industry. Okay, well, it's been moved that Councillor Duff's report be accepted. Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item 13.2 on the agenda, which is the Mergen Men's Shed amendment of lease. And is that the correct? Is that where we are, Mr. CEO?
That's correct, and councillors looking worried over there. Your conflict of interest has been dealt with, and the matter was so. We noted against the report as well, but yeah, no, it's fine.
Yes, thank you. Just confirming that council has resolved that Councillor Duff may remain and participate. And so the Mergen Men's Shed have requested additional land for the display of railway carriages. A realignment of the existing licence boundary is required to accommodate the display. As the area of the licence will be realigned, a new lease will be required. Can I just add that this is in response to requirements that have been conveyed to council and to the Mergen Med Shed by the Department of Transport and Main Roads. So this is one of their requirements for safety of rail trail users, that if they want to put some sort of a shed or covering around their the railway carriage, it needs to be relocated. Hence the requirement to realign the area, and that then gives rise to the requirement for a new lease. So the officer's recommendation is that the boundary of the existing licence for the Mergen Men's Shed be realigned, and council enter into a new lease on the same terms and conditions as the existing licence over part of Lot 3 and Lot 4 on SP 119874. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Seconder, thank you. Oh, no, sorry, not Councillor Duff. Sorry, not going to you. Thank you, Councillor Potter. And the seconder, thank you very much, Councillor Froloff. My apologies, Councillor Duff. Okay, do we have any councillors who wish to speak for or against the matter? Thanks, Councillor Jones.
I just got a quick question, Mr. Mayor. Why do they only want part of Lot 3 and Lot 4? Why are we not giving them both full lots and let them, for future advancement or anything like that, why are we just giving them part of? Is there a possibility that they'd be interested in taking all of Lot 3 and 4?
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Might refer that to you, to yourself, General Manager O'May.
Yeah, I just have to be chair, but I think the part of the lot is the rail trail lot, so they can only have part of it, or it actually takes over the whole rail trail part. So it's just the identified area.
Thank you, General Manager O'May. Any further, does any councillor wish to speak for or against the matter? Any further commentary? If not, those in favour of the motion? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, yes, so we're now going to move on to item 13.3, approval for Kingaroy Rotary to occupy additional shed bay at Kingaroy Regional Enterprise Centre. Can I please have it noted in the minutes that Mr. CEO has exited the chamber on the basis that he is a member of the management committee of the Kingaroy Rotary Club. The Kingaroy Rotary Club occupy one of the bays of the Service Club 4-bay shed at the Kingaroy Enterprise Centre. They've requested permission from council to occupy an additional bay left vacant by the Tabinga Rotary Club after they folded at the end of June 2020. Council has previously resolved to grant approval for St John's Lutheran Parents and Friends Association to take over the Tabinga Rotary Club shed space, as they expressed an interest in taking over the organisation of the Tabinga Rotary's annual Bookarama fundraising event. St John's Lutheran Parents and Friends Association and Kingaroy Rotary have agreed to take up one each of the 2 shed bays left vacant by Tabinga Rotary. So what's happened there is that Tabinga Rotary had 2 sheds down there. One was used for the storage of some of their equipment. The other one was used to house the books for Bookarama. So as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the St John's P&F have taken over the shed that houses the books, as they will be looking at running Bookarama, and then the shed that's left was the old equipment storage shed held by Tabinga Rotary, which now the Kingaroy Rotary are requesting that they are able to occupy. So that being the case, the officer's recommendation, the motion is that council approves Kingaroy Rotary Club occupy an additional shed bay left vacant by the Tabinga Rotary at the Service Club 4-bay shed at the Kingaroy Enterprise Centre, Cornish Street, Kingaroy. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do we have any councillor that wishes to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to let councillors know that Councillor Potter and I have had some discussions with the Rotary Club. I just want to acknowledge the great work that they do in our community, the funds that they raise and the outcomes that occur because of those. it really is clear and apparent after visiting the shed and visiting some of the volunteers that they really do need the extra bay, and it will alleviate the issues with a container that's temporarily placed at the back of the service club sheds. They're very grateful that there was a place for service clubs to store their equipment and get together here in Kingaroy, and I just wanted to speak in support of the application. I think it's a really great, when you see what items the group donate across the world to support humanitarian causes, it's really impressive. And yeah, I just can't speak more highly for the work that they do, and can certainly see that this is a need that would be met if council were to support their request. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Right, if no other councillor wishes to make comment, those in favour of the motion? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. It's now just after 12:15. There are a number of items to still work through on the agenda. Council has been invited by the local TAFE hospitality students to attend a luncheon. We'll be going out there and buying our lunch, paid for each individually by each councillor out of their own pocket, if you could please, thank you, as I know you often do. And that will be giving the TAFE hospitality students the opportunity to get some much needed work experience in terms of table waiting and food preparation. So that being the case, we're due at TAFE College at 12:30. I'll now then we'll obviously break for lunch shortly. When we resume, I'd suggest we resume at 1:45. That'll give us time to travel back, and we have some important matters to attend to when the meeting reopens, including the portfolio report for Economic Development and the future of South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee, as well as the proposed amendment to the partnership agreement by Visit South Burnett, along with other matters. We'll resume at 1:45. That being the case, I'd move that meeting now closed for the lunch break. Right, welcome back everyone. Now I'd like to move a resolution that the meeting recommence. We have a second for that. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. The next item on the agenda is the Economic Development Portfolio Report, to be presented by Councillor Shoemaker, and we welcome you and to welcome your report. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great pleasure to provide my report. It is my view as a council, we must adopt a future-thinking approach and create a culture that leverages every opportunity to improve economic activity, support community wellbeing, promote cultural diversity and safeguard our environment. Like my fellow councillors, I have reviewed the previous draft economic development strategy for the period 2025 that has not been adopted due to the caretaker period. I've also undertaken my own research and drawn on the passion, inputs and expertise of others from inside and outside the region. As a council, I see we have an important role in bringing everyone together to drive a strategy that serves our shareholders, the people of our region. A strategy that prioritises their quality of life and delivers outcomes. I'd like to see our region adopt a strategy that builds on our diverse economic strengths and addresses our barriers to achieving a sustainable economy into the future. Today, I would like to table some of the ideas I've collected for my fellow councillors' consideration, and equally invite our community to contact me with their feedback as together we start to turn our thoughts to creating our economic development strategy. A strategy that will guide how I lead this portfolio during this term. In my view, our economic development vision should be about what we aspire to, the vivid picture of what we intend to create. When I think about this and consider all that I've heard and researched, there are some fundamental pillars in which I think our vision should embody. These are, number one, we have the space to grow. Number two, we have a region of people who pour their hard work, efforts and passion into their businesses. Number 3, we want the people of our region to have a great life here in the South Burnett. Number 4, we want others to look at our region and recognise they too could have a great life here. Number 5, we want to sustain what we have. And number 6, we want to draw in investment and accelerate economic growth, ensuring a future here for our children. I know that the prosperity of our region is closely linked to social, environmental and economic drivers. And for the purposes of defining the economic development vision for the South Burnett of 2025, I've compiled the following draft vision statement, and I welcome your views. Increase confidence in our diverse and sustainable economy in a way that has enabled population growth, enriched community wellbeing, and inspired investment and employment outcomes. The strategic themes I've drafted for Council and the community to consider in the formulation of our economic development strategy include a broad focus on the aspects of livability in a way that complements our region's country lifestyle while sustaining and encouraging business and population growth. Building on our traditional strengths of agriculture and encouraging further diversity by supporting emerging sectors, for instance, ag tech or bioenergy, in ways that create flow-on benefits for our local businesses. Elevating our region's cultural assets, including its arts, festivals, events, heritage, music and performances. Ensuring adequate infrastructure and services are in place to support visitor experiences and encourage greater visitation, with consideration to growing a range of major events, particularly sports tourism, and the unique local experiences on offer, for instance, our rail trails. Supporting the progression of food manufacturing and processing sector, as well as other potential value adds in a way that creates long-term employment, export and supply chain opportunities. Working together to build a plan for our region's transition beyond the eventual closure of Toronto Power Stations and Meandu Mine. Creating a vibrant regional centre and leveraging off other major investments such as the Kingaroy Hospital redevelopment in ways that support our residents to access the critical services and supports they require. And leveraging our diverse economy and create a culture that is hungry for entrepreneurship, innovation and investment. The enablers of economic development that I would like to table based on the feedback I've received include culture. It's my view that every council employee is a potential touch point for an economic development inquiry, regardless of their immediate position. I would like to see the ethos of growth and a future-focused mindset become part of our council's DNA. Collaboration. This means maintaining and forming collaborative relationships and partnerships with industry, government, business representative groups and potential investors. Strategic infrastructure, land availability and facilities. This means leveraging existing infrastructure, considering how our planning schemes and approach can be a catalyst for our region's favourable geographic location. Adopting a continuous improvement approach to working with stakeholders to ensure our transport routes, water security and investment-ready land is available into the future. Leadership, advocacy and promotion in ways that never waste an opportunity for discussion about pipeline projects, activities and partnerships that aim to improve the quality of life experienced by all residents and the resilience of everyone who calls the South Burnett region home. As I start to think more about these, I see Council has an important role in the coordination of our region's economic development strategy. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this journey and excited about the prospects of the many projects underway, projects that are already at work to achieve some of the desired outcomes I've discussed with you today. Some of these projects include the Kingaroy Transformation Project, which will create sustained economic benefits through greater trade and tourism capacity, as well as redeveloping the CBD in ways that attract investment, create space for street dining, and enable the installation of smart infrastructure for the future. The continuation of discussions about the short and long list options identified in the strategic business case to increase water security as part of the Burnett Water Feasibility Study funded by the federal government's National Water Infrastructure Fund. Council's $15.463 million capital spend this year on projects that will support economic development outcomes in our towns, villages, including the improvement of infrastructure and facilities used by tourists visiting our region. Council's involvement in the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Organisation of Councils and its continued commitment to collaboration with all levels of government and our neighbouring regions. Council's long-term planning, financial planning, asset management and capital works program that aims to provide the infrastructure required to meet the demands of our community into the future. Council's review of its planning scheme and plans to undertake a major amendment to address the issues identified in the scheme's application and implementation. While I look forward to workshopping some of these ideas further with Council and welcome feedback from the community, some of the immediate projects that I would like to work with councillors to achieve have arisen from our recent meeting with the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation. Just this month, the Council was briefed about some of the work undertaken during the previous term and the benchmarking of Council's current performance in terms of investment readiness. As the portfolio holder, I would like to work with Council and the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation to progress some of the suggested actions from the previous Council's review, including the development of a solid elevator pitch, being a united and strong story that champions the region's investment readiness and clearly articulates the South Burnett's unique strengths. It is my view this pitch may be formed while preparing the South Burnett's corporate plan, and once developed, this pitch will become the shared narrative that councillors, staff, documents, websites and all other council-generated materials use to promote the region. I'd also like to focus some time toward the development of a policy that documents Council's delivery of investment readiness procedures. It's my understanding the purpose of this policy is to guide and support both councillors and council employees in relation to the appropriateness and level of support provided by council to facilitate economic development related inquiries. I would like to recognise the work of the previous council and its partnership with the Department of State Development, Tourism and Innovation, and can see opportunities in continuing these discussions and working to embed these recommended actions. I see the investment readiness policy as a tangible project that will help to entice, create and sustain growth in our region by ensuring the framework that means economic development becomes part of Council's everyday business, a shared responsibility across the organisation. Since coming to Council, I've spoken about the opportunity to push the reset button in the economic development portfolio. And I recognise that in this time the world has changed. And I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of our business community who have risen to the challenges of COVID-19, in particular our tourism operators. Southern Queensland Country Tourism, our regional tourism organisation, has recently challenged tourism operators to meet the need to change, to keep up, to survive and thrive in this new normal. I recognise this year has presented unprecedented challenges for tourism operators. And while we have experienced increases in recent visitation through our visitor information centres, with some 3,549 visitors recorded during July, I understand the cancellation of major events and travel restrictions has not gone unnoticed in the industry. I've been undertaking some further research to understand how Council previously supported the tourism industry and how other regions work in this space. I'd like to continue to work with Council and the tourism community to develop the best operating model for our region into the future and identify what supports and opportunities may exist to see our desired model function and thrive into the future. I'm passionate about empowering the tourism industry and working together to grow our region's visitor economy. In closing, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the efforts of our local volunteers who in July attributed over 1,200 hours to the successful operation of our visitor information centres. Without their generosity, our services would be limited and I would like to offer my thanks for their community spirit and acknowledge the following volunteers for their significant milestones of service achieved in May this year. 5 years of service, Kim Boyter, Julie Tainton, Sandy Podger, and Jackie Martin. 10 years of service, Kevin Garside, and an incredible 15 years of service, Bob Baldwin. Volunteering at a centre involves supporting the day-to-day operations and speaking with customers and helping visitors on their holidays. Duties include providing residents and visitors with details of key tourist attractions within the region, local history and information on council's facilities and local tourist venues. I'd like to encourage and welcome members of our community. If you have some time to give, please consider registering your interest in volunteering at one of council's customer service centres. Thank you again to those volunteers, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that my report be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Well done. And do we have a mover for that? A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do any councillors wish to comment, have any questions in relation to the report? Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Very good report, Councillor Schumacher. But I'd just like to agree with Councillor Schumacher with regards to our volunteers, and I'd like to congratulate those volunteers that have their years of service. So it's great that we've got such passionate people within our community that are willing to give up their personal time to volunteer in our Vic centres and museums and everything around the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors, Councillor Schumacher, yes?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just in closing, I would like to also acknowledge Ralph and Kay, who we met with just earlier this week at the mayoral morning meet and greet, and the work that they've done recently at a caravanning show that was in Toowoomba. It was a commitment that council had made pre-COVID and pre some of the recent changes in the economic development team. Ralph and Kay worked 5 days back to back promoting the South Burnett region, both at that event, but then came back and ran the Visitor Information Centre. And it's my understanding that there are significant changes in terms of the cleaning that needs to be undertaken by volunteers and just the paperwork in terms of tracking the people who are coming through our centre at the moment. So I'd especially like to acknowledge Ralph and Kay for all that they've done for our Visitor Information Centres during this really difficult time.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. All those in favour of receipt of the report? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 14.2 at 287, future of the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee and South Burnett directions. This report provides notes from the South Burnett Directions meeting held on the 10th of February 2020 and minutes from the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee held on 8 June and 3 August 2020 for information. The South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee meeting agreed to have a 3 to 6 months hiatus on meetings during which time the Council will have a clearer direction for economic development and tourism for the South Burnett region. On the recommencement of the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee meetings, the Wondai Business Network will be invited to be a member of the SBTAC. The officer's recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council receive the notes of South Burnett Directions meeting held on 10 February 2020, receive and note the minutes from South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee's meetings held on 8 June and 3 August 2020, approve a hiatus of up to 6 months for both South Burnett Directions and South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee, invites the Wondai Business Network to be a member of the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee upon resumption of the committee, and approve the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee terms of reference as amended. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Second, thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have councillors wish to speak for or against the matter? Thank you, Councillor Schumacher.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I've read this, and it's been some time since South Burnett Directions met on the 10th of February, and certainly I recognise the calibre of people involved in that committee, and before we take that hiatus, I would actually, as the Economic Development Portfolio holder, just like the opportunity to meet with South Burnett Directions and provide an update about some of the work that has been happening and just sort of set the tone for what is currently happening in council from an economic development point of view. So I don't expect that to be like a formal meeting as such, but I'd just like the opportunity. I haven't, since being elected, had an opportunity to meet with the group. So I'd like to offer that invitation anyway, if anybody would like to take that up, and certainly support if the South Burnett Directions was supportive of the 6-month hiatus going forward with that. Certainly the Tourism Advisory Committee, I'm very supportive of that. We discussed that at the last meeting, and I think it's a good opportunity to take a break and reset.
Thank you. Might have been handy to know before we wrote the recommendations, if I may. There's an opportunity. South Burnett Directions is not been meeting for some considerable time. It's not even the notes. It was brought together for the part of the drafting of the workshop. There's a couple of individuals on that's been active, and it really does need to have a refocus as far as week council's going, and certainly a feedback from the committee members at the time and the drop off in participation by the committee members was that well, not wasting their time, but if we're going to get a group of people like that together, there needs to be some sort of a direction, an agenda, and an understanding of where all the parties want to go. I mean, an informal get-together doesn't affect what is in there. The committee, this is not rationalising, but this is, certainly we'll be writing to them all immediately after this, given, depending on, council's resolution on it, but their input as to what would be the best mechanism to go forward will be absolutely vital. And I think what you're asking isn't inconsistent with the recommendation, but it's, if I was going to be frank and open and transparent, it's not functioning now.
I think Councillor Shoemaker, as CEO, has highlighted that nothing stopping you from reaching out on an informal basis to gather some of those members together and seek some background as to the work that's been done at this point without compromising the motion here today. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak for or against the motion? If not, sorry, yes, Councillor
sorry,
Duff.
I just wanted to acknowledge, as has been said, that those the contribution from the likes of Ken Mills and Barb Madden and Brett Heading and the different ones that have sat on the directions, and they've been on that committee for quite a number of years and been done a lot, put a lot of different thoughts and ideas, and I think it would be good if Councillor Shoemaker did get an opportunity to meet with some of those because they're major players in our region, and I'm sure they have a lot to offer about a way forward, because we are at the crossroads now, looking for a new direction. So I think it would be certainly a good opportunity for you to touch base with some of those key stakeholders in our region. So thank you.
Right, well, it seems the South Burnett Tourism Advisory Committee have reached agreement that they'd like to take a break for this period of time. We have some other initiatives happening, of course, in this space as part of council moving forward with economic development and tourism across the region. Okay, that being said, councillors have heard the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Right. Okay. We're now moving on to item 14.3 on the agenda. And item 14.3 is requesting council consider the proposed partnership agreement between council and Visit South Burnett Incorporated. Council received by email on Monday, 6 July 2020 at 4:50 p.m. an updated proposal from Visit South Burnett for the 2020/2021 financial year. Preliminary discussion with the council has occurred at the council workshop on 8 July 2020, where they were informed of the basic content and advised the proposal would be presented to the workshop following the July council meeting, which was Wednesday, 22 July 2020. Visit South Burnett representatives were in attendance to speak to their proposal at this workshop. Visit South Burnett has discussed the proposal at community evenings in Yarraman on 21 July and Wandai on 28 July. The proposal seeks Council's financial support for funding of a tourism officer and funds for destinational marketing of the region. Visit South Burnett has advised that it has obtained 80 members and that it will be unable to continue should Council not offer the financial support requested. The officer's recommendation will effectively have two parts. The first motion will be that Council, South Burnett Regional Council, renew the partnership agreement with Visit South Burnett Incorporated as a tourism organisation partner and acknowledge that Visit South Burnett Incorporated is a member-based entity with a tourism industry base. And the second resolution will go to the matter of Council's support for Visit South Burnett for destinational marketing and the extent of that in financial terms and for an appropriate period of time. That being the case, Mr. CEO, I thought we might deal with the first resolution, if we could. So the officer's recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council renew the partnership agreement with Visit South Burnett Incorporated as a tourism organisation partner and acknowledge that Visit South Burnett Incorporated is a member-based entity with a tourism industry base. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. The second item in relation to this matter is Council's support for the proposal to fund the appointment of a Tourism Development Officer and destinational marketing, as has been provided in the agenda. I would, I suppose, CEO Mark, in terms of the procedural matter here dealing with this, am I able to call on councillors to speak?
Mr. Mayor, we put up a dual recommendation, support or not support, seeking council's direction. If a councillor has something they wish to move from the floor, you'd be more than within your rights to call for that.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I will now ask if there's any councillor who'd like to put forward a motion from the floor. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion. I would like to propose that South Burnett Regional Council funds 50% of the partnership and funding agreement proposed, being $70,000 for the next 6 months, commencing from the 1st of September to the 28th of February 2021, subject to VSB's agreeance with Council's funding terms. And I've drafted some terms that I'd like to present to the Council. The period of this funding agreement will be for the financial year 2020 to 2021, with a review of the agreement and any further funding needs to be considered in March 2021. VSB will be invited to submit a proposal for funding agreement for financial year 2021-22 at the March meeting for Council's consideration in preparation of its next budget. At the March meeting with Council, VSB is to provide an update on the development of its tourism strategy in partnership with Southern Queensland Country Tourism as per Section 4 of the agreement. The terms of this funding agreement with Council will include KPIs which are to be workshopped and agreed between Council and the VSB Committee for adoption as soon as reasonably practicable. VSB must report back to Council at the March 2021 Council meeting on its demonstrated progress in achieving these agreed KPIs. Council will provide an office space for VSB at one of its visitor information centres. VSB are invited to distribute its marketing materials via Council's visitor information centres. Council will support VSB's bid to attract match funding from other levels of government and will partner with VSB in an advocacy role. VSB can submit information to the CEO for approval and inclusion on the Discover South Burnett website and its associated social media platforms. Council's tourism portfolio holder is to be invited to attend VSB committee meetings as an observer, but will not vote on matters brought before the committee. VSB committee will decide and report back to council where these funds are invested in marketing the region as a destination beyond its membership base. VSB must maintain a good working relationship with tourism operators across the South Burnett and secure and maintain the membership of both minor and major tourism operators in the region. Should VSB agree to the terms of this partnership agreement, VSB must maintain a positive and collaborative working relationship with council and actively acknowledge council's support of the tourism industry. VSB must issue a joint media statement with council following its acceptance of the council's terms, and any public meetings of VSB or demonstrated behaviours that do not align with council's values will not be accepted and will result in council withdrawing from this partnership. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They're my the terms in which I have drafted for council's consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Could you just confirm that you are moving that as a motion for consideration by council?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that as a motion for consideration by council.
Thank you, Council.
Just procedurally, before the debate, so in point one, councillor, there was some is it the next 6 months or is it for the term of the, is that slightly different to what?
Yes, I was talking, so for the next 6 months, commencing the 1st of September to the 28th of February 2021. So the period 28th of February 2021, and then the period for this funding agreement is for this financial year, and certainly any further funding needs or requests will be considered by council in March 2021. So am I changing that there to this financial year? Yep.
Well, that would be the current financial year.
For the current financial year. And my point for including that is I'm very mindful of the agreement that Visit South Burnett's put on the table. I'm very mindful of the community discussion that's been had, and I just would really like to continue to work with Visit South Burnett before we commit to any further funding at this point in time.
Councillor Shoemaker, just with those corrections there, could you just please now confirm that you're moving that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to confirm that I'll move this motion for consideration by council.
Councillor Shoemaker, the motion can be seen there as presented in the agenda in front of us. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you. We do have Councillor Duff. Good. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, open it to the floor. Do we have councillors wishing to speak for or against or make comment in relation to the matter? Councillor Duff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely wish to speak for this recommendation. I'm 100% supportive of Visit South Burnett. I think that they've got the runs on the board. They've been working with council for a very long time to try and get some more support, and we said for them to go away and get some membership, which they've done. They've got 80 members. They've done a fantastic job. Wherever I go around the region now, I'm getting feedback that they're and people are wanting to be members. They're all joining, and I think that there's a snowball effect, and I think it's an exciting opportunity for our region to get on board with a local tourism group. I've wanted this to happen for so long, because I think that they've got skin in the game and they will do a fantastic job. The only thing that I'm a bit concerned about is the continuity here, because I thought that we were going to do 6 months and then we were actually going to review it in time for them if they had someone employed to be a tourism officer, that we were actually going to allow them to continue. There'll be a big gap there while they wait for the budget. That's my only concern with this. I didn't understand your conditions there. I thought we were... Yeah, so just like to get a response there about just concerned about the continuity, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff, and certainly I'm very mindful of that. What I'm proposing is that we work with Visit South Burnett, so I'm proposing 50% of the partnership agreement that they've put forward, which is $70,000, and I would like to work hand in hand with Visit South Burnett. I've had extensive conversations with Jason Kinsella, the chairman, as we all have, and also with Peter Homan, and I would like to see, there's been nothing but conversation about finding match funding and looking at those opportunities. So for this period, I would really like to work closely with Visit South Burnett. I'm not saying that it's completely off the table. I think I need more information before we commit to the full proposal. And so by all means, I have provided in the conditions that if they would like to, it's up to them as to how they spend this money in terms of destination marketing. If they'd like to employ a tourism development officer with some of these funds during this current period to help with that task on a subcontract or something, that's of their certainly undertaking and business. But I think this is a good opportunity. It's a foot in the door, and you know, I've been thinking about it. They've launched in March, and since then grown to over 80 members, which is really impressive, I agree. And I'd certainly like to congratulate them on their efforts. But it is my view that this agreement and what I'm proposing is only the beginning. And as the Tourism and Economic Development portfolio holder, I'm excited about the opportunity to turn our minds to what's best for our region. And in my view, that means working hand in hand as a united front and empowering the tourism industry to lead the way. As per the French proverb from the late 1100s, CEO Mark, was channeling some of you when I made my notes. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and in my view, what we are embarking on in this partnership is really important work, and important work takes time. I understand the frustration expressed by VSB. However, VSB has only been operating for 5 months in a time when, as stated in their letter and proposal, COVID restrictions have delivered catastrophic consequences to the tourism and hospitality sector. So I see we have no choice but to get this right, to take the learnings from the past and together find a sustainable way forward. I've listened and I understand that VSB have publicly argued that without Council's full support, they will have no choice but to fold the organisation, and I sincerely hope that that is not the case and that they see what I'm proposing as a significant milestone as we commit to working together over these next 6 months in a positive way forward for our greater region, noting that tourism has so many flow-on benefits across our economy. I'm just so grateful to hear that, you know, accommodation providers have been fully booked, restaurants and wineries are experiencing increasing drive market traffic, and I can tell you from my visit to the Bunyas on Sunday, it was difficult to get a park with families all flocking to our region to enjoy some country lifestyle over the Brisbane show holiday long weekend. Some operators have compared the weekend's takings to that of the Easter long weekend, and I'd also like to acknowledge the series of wonderful local events that we've talked about today: the Wandai Country Running Festival, Council's Festival of the Dams, the Moffatdale Boutique Markets, Kingaroy and Nanango Markets, the South Burnett Mountain Bike Club, who recently, through their race event, brought world champion riders to our region. I completely understand that COVID is far from over. However, for the time being, I believe we have a unique opportunity to push the reset button and together build a strategy for tourism that grows our region in a way that maintains these levels of visitation and continues to bring new money into our economy and in turn support local jobs. So I welcome the opportunity to follow the tourism industry's lead and commit to going with Jason Kinsella and Southern Queensland Country Tourism as we lobby and advocate for further funding to support tourism in our region.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you very much. So, if I could just add some observation to this proposal you've put forward to Council as a motion as such. share Councillor Duff's concerns, while overall see it to be quite, I would support the majority of it. I'm concerned about items 2 and 6, as listed on the screen in front of us, that the period of this funding agreement will for the current financial year. I'm concerned that then when we hit 28 February, that will be then seen as the end of the agreement, and it would leave the VSB organisation perhaps with a staff member and with a program half delivered that they can't then pursue through to the remainder of the financial year, or don't have an opportunity to come back under this resolution, under this motion, and do so. I'm wondering whether Council would consider perhaps an amendment to item 2 that says the period of this funding agreement will be for 6 months, with a review of the agreement to occur in February 2021 as to any future funding for the remainder of the 2020-21 financial year. So that would be an amendment there, and I can do that again, Linnell, if Council wishes to proceed. The other item 6, again, VSB must report back to Council at the March 2021 Council meeting on its demonstrated progress in achieving these agreed KPIs. Again, I would prefer to see that at the February 2021 Council meeting, if that's the case. Now, procedurally, Mr. CEO, should we wish to amend, this is now a motion, should we wish to amend this motion, what would you see as the appropriate procedure there?
Again, depending on your mover and seconder agreeing, there's probably 2 aspects which I was going to wait to the very end. At the moment, this proposal isn't funded, so it will need to be sent to the third quarter budget. It doesn't stop the inaction of the motion, but there will need to be a funding source for this revenue. And the same as if you extend or keep the agreement to 6 months with future funding, then that would be picked up as part of the third quarter budget review. You would need to, if Council was of the mind to look at other alternative funding, there would need to be a budget review at that point in time as well. So you would need to keep that very much in the fore of mind.
Right, so that being the case, should I move that those amendments be...
As I say, if you're moving an amendment to it, or if the mover seconder, if that's the intent of the motion, and that was, I saw clarification, because points 1 and 2 sort of referred to a full financial year or remaining financial year, and point 1 referred to 6 months. So it's a clarification of, so that everyone is, well, to my mind, it's a clarification of the time period. So if the mover and seconder are of the same mind that it was meant for 6 months, well, then it's by agreement and the will of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Shoemaker, as the mover, can I ask you to confirm whether or not you're in agreement with, or of the same mind as myself, in that item 2 should read that the period of this funding agreement will be for 6 months, with a review of the agreement and outcomes to occur in February 2021. I'll just finish, sorry, Councillor Shoemaker. Sorry. To occur in February 2021 as to future funding for the remainder of the financial year. And that item 6 would then VSB report back to Council. So we've changed that to now February 2021. They're the 2 amendments. Would you be comfortable with those being your motion now reading as follows?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am comfortable with those. That was my intention for suggesting the dates. It's certainly by no means to position VSB in a way where they wouldn't be able to continue functioning. I was trying to line up my dates with our budget review. So yes, I'm fully supportive of that, and apologise for the oversight. That's a much better outcome, and I hope in that February review and discussion, we can be better informed to understand where we want to go from here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you. Councillor Duff, as the seconder of the motion, again, would you be of a mindset that you are happy to proceed with the motion as it is now seen on the screen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just now thinking whether point number 3 then needs to be altered as well, the dot point number 3. But I'm happy with your suggestion on number 2.
Yeah, that's for consideration. I think, though, that would be a separate matter in relation to the next financial year's budget. 21-22, and that would be considered as part of council's budget process. Are you suggesting that we would undertake both at once?
Thinking that if they're going to put their proposal forward in February, would you then invite them back in March to put forward another proposal for the future budget? That was all. I just wonder about the timing of it, whether you wanted to just alter that one as well, or just, I'm happy if you leave it, but just flagging it, that was all.
Item 4, at the March meeting with council, VSB has provided an update on the development of its tourism strategy partners as per section 4 of the agreement. So would we also seek to then make that at the February meeting on both items 3 and 4? Okay. Councillor Shoemaker, are you comfortable with changing that motion to what we can see there in front of us now?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Okay, so we've made changes there now to points number 2, 3, 4 and 6 on there, and you're confirming that you're comfortable with that as part of your motion. Councillor Duff, can you confirm that as the seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors wish to speak for or against the motion that is currently on the table in front of us? I think I will. Just if I could say that I would like to support what both councillors said in terms of council's commitment to tourism, the development of tourism across the South Burnett region. We've heard today about the amount of infrastructure funding that council has committed through its capital expenditure program to supporting tourism. And of course, this is an extension of such. I would think, from what I could see here, I'm of the view that to fund Visit South Burnett asked for $140,000, being for a full 12-month period, which was $80,000, as it was explained to me, to fund a tourism development officer for 12 months, and $60,000 to fund destinational marketing for 12 months. Now, we are now in the August meeting, so we're within that 12 months time frame. This is effectively giving the organisation, I suppose, if you were to annualise that, they are in fact getting their $140,000. But what we're offering is, under this motion, would be 50% for a 6-month period. So, in other words, $40,000 for a TDO, $30,000 for destinational marketing, be a total of $70,000. If one was to annualise that in accounting terms, it would be equivalent to $140,000 for 12 months. But under this motion, it would then cease at the end of February 2021, with the VSB organisation having the opportunity then to come forward at the February meeting and put forward an extension to that proposal to be carried through to 30 June, and to also put forward a proposal to be incorporated in council's budget considerations for next financial year. So very much keeps the door open to VSB for further reviews, for further funding, but the 6 months gives council and VSB an opportunity to work together and to see what can be achieved in relation to the agreed KPIs, and really providing the level of funding that they're seeking, but bring it back to a 6-month period in light of the fact that we are already partway through the financial year anyway. Councillor Shoemaker, have I correctly summarised what your motion would represent?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm very much looking forward to this opportunity to work with VSB and to look at what other match funding, during all of the community meetings that we've attended both in Wondai and Yarraman recently, there's been a lot of discussion about, once council invests in Visit South Burnett, the opportunities to attract match funding. And I think, I'm very passionate about doing all that I can to support the group in working in that space. I think this is a good starting point. Like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think this sets us up to really kick some goals early. I agree with some of the comments that Councillor Duff has made. I've heard mixed reviews, but largely a lot of positive feedback, and I think it's a great opportunity to empower the tourism industry to really work hand in hand and see what we can do in this space.
Good, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring to a point, so Part 5 of that agreement with them, they've also got a Part B and a Part C. Part B said that they will work with, that VSB will work with SQCT to bring the regional tourism worker within the South Burnett, but Part C also says that council will consider supplying office space, vehicle and consumables as part of a co-contribution towards the TDO. I'm just curious, that's going to add more then to the amount of money that we're supplying for VSB?
Thank you, Councillor Potter. You've raised a very important point. In the proposed partnership agreement in the agenda, Councillor Potter's referring to item 5, funding as put forward by VSB, and part C of such does talk to council consider supplying suitable office space, vehicle and consumables as part of a co-contribution towards TDO. Mr. CEO, can I just ask for clarification in terms of the motion at hand?
Council's resolution overrides. That's a draft agreement that was given to us for consideration, and I can quite clearly and categorically state there is no vehicle available. The vehicles have been folded back into the fleet, and they're utilised not only for our staff, and we still have a range of museum, dams, tourism assets that we own. So they're fully utilised, but we're also utilising those vehicles for other. Office space is easy enough, and I think that's touched on in the resolution. So the resolution would be council counter offer back, I suppose, in business terms, but there is no vehicle being proposed or offered.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So yes, that certainly clearly clarifies, I would think, Councillor Potter, that the resolution in effect overrides that request for a vehicle and consumables. The resolution provides for office space at one of the visitor information centres, but does not provide for a vehicle and consumables. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I agree with everything that's been put forward. Obviously, this is a council proposal that we've all discussed, and Councillor Shoemaker has the portfolio for tourism as presented and done a very good job. I just want to clarify a few things. Just your reference there in accountancy terms, $70,000, and it progresses across to 140 for the year. And just knowing that this money will significantly, or will have an impact on our budget, our bottom line, and into Councillor Shoemaker's comments in regards to the meetings that we went to and the Executive Committee of Visit South Burnett strongly indicating that they will get like-for-like funding from the state government. I would certainly encourage those people to certainly push that, because come February, I can assure you that with the budget that we've delivered in July, things are very tight. And this has been an exceptional effort on behalf of council to get this money and give this LTO the opportunity to prove their worth. So I just want to make it clear that come February and the conversations and certain comments, that this money will affect our budget as we currently sit, and moving forward, expectations, even if Visit South Burnett are successful, it's going to be another major hurdle for council to deliver any more funding. So I just want to put that on the table so that when we do get to February and they go on gangbusters, it's still going to be a challenge for us as council to deliver any more funding. So I really do strongly encourage the comments in those Visitor South Burnett meetings that have been alluded to certainly push and advocate for state funding dollar for dollar, because money is very tight in this budget this year.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'd certainly support Councillor Jones's comments that there has been a strong indication given to the meetings that I've been at by VSB that they would actively pursue matching funding from state or federal government departments. Council, in the resolution here, should it be passed, is clearly indicating that we would then partner with VSB in an advocacy capacity to support any applications that they would seek to put forward where council sees appropriate to do so. So that support will be there, but I would certainly support Councillor Jones that there needs to be a demonstrated effort, I think, to access government from the state and federal level where it's available for different programs. The other thing that I'd like to also point out here is that as with any funding agreement that council would receive from the state or the federal government, it is from my experience, and please correct me if I'm wrong, fellow councillors, that it is common practice in funding agreements to have the clauses included in the agreement that Councillor Shoemaker has put forward in relation to maintaining a positive relationship with Council, to appropriately acknowledging the contribution by Council as the funding body, and to also along with issuing a joint media statement in acknowledging such, moving forward progressively to ensure that any public meetings of the Visit South Burnett Association are conducted with behaviours, and can I make it very clear, a strong expectation here, are conducted with behaviours that do not align with Council's values. They will not be accepted and will result in Council withdrawing from this partnership. I would like to make that very clear. As one of the councillors, I would certainly expect that that condition of the agreement would be upheld with the highest degree of ethics, honesty, in the way in which the partnership moves forward at public meetings of VSB or any other engagement with Council. Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate several months ago in the lead up to the election my stand on this, how I supported tourism in the South Burnett, and people would have recognised where I went and where I stood and what I said. That being said, and Councillor Duff has said that VSB has got the runs on the board, I also stated at the last meeting that tourism in the South Burnett and probably in the country is capable of kicking doors down. That being said, and again I can't reiterate enough, Visit South Burnett and its members really have to work together in this, and 80 members is sensational, but there's probably a lot of others out there that need to join, and they want to work hand in this, because as Councillor Jones commented on, and with what's been brought down in the budget, and I've made a comment again that my concerns where Council will be in 12 months, 2 years, 3 and 4 years' time. So this has to be a partnership that has got to work, and everybody's got to be in it together. One in, all in. So I appreciate Councillor Shoemaker, what work you've put into this, and I support it. And I'd like to see Visit South Burnett walk hand in hand with us with the start of this proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Henshin, and of course, we'll make it clear that Council has put a significant amount of work into getting to this point. We have listened, we have engaged with tourism operators. I know Councillor Shoemaker has extensively across the region for several weeks. We have attended meetings, we've listened to the membership of Visit South Burnett. We've had the Visit South Burnett Management Committee in here and present to Council in our workshop. So we have put a significant amount of work into getting to this point. I would thank Visit South Burnett for doing so, and thank my colleagues for the work that's been put in to get to this stage. My view is that this is a measured and responsible approach to supporting tourism in the region, one in which gives us both the opportunity to work together for 6 months, to learn from how that goes, and then to help map out a path moving forward in supporting the development and growth of industry, of the tourism industry across the region. I have always said that I believe that industry should drive industry, and that in doing this, Council is giving the tourism industry the opportunity to demonstrate that they can indeed do exactly that. So with that, if no other councillor wishes to speak for or against the matter, we'll put it to the vote. The motion is on the table in front of you all. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Right, we'll now move on to, I believe, Linnell, item 16.1. Mr. CEO. 16.1.
Sorry, the information notices. Sorry, I was going to ask General Manager Jarvis, do you need a procedural resolution? Because this will need to be considered in the first quarter review because it's currently unfunded. So just a procedural that this matter be sent to the first quarter budget review. It's not any contradictory to what's been passed, but it's just so it gives a head of power for the finance team to find the money.
Well, yes, as the finance portfolio holder, I'd certainly like to move a procedural motion that this be put forward as part of the first quarterly review in terms of identifying the funds to support this. Do I have a seconder for such? Thanks, Councillor Jones.
Yep.
Okay, procedural motion passed.
All in favour?
Thank you,
Yep.
Mr CEO. All
Thanks,
in favour?
thank you.
We're all in
Sorry,
favour?
should.
Yes, good. Procedural resolution
Yeah,
passed
it
unanimously.
just
Thank you
tidies
all.
up the paperwork for it. Thank you.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Mr CEO. Item 16.1 is a list of correspondence pending completion the assessment report. It's the officer's recommendation that the list of correspondence provided in the agenda pending completion of assessment report be received. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Second, thank you, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 16.2, delegated authority reports. The officer's recommendation is that the delegated authority report be received. The items are included in the attachments with the agenda as listed on the notes. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Second, thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Right, now, Mr CEO, I believe we're through to item 17 on the agenda. And yes, we have 4 matters there to attend to in closed session. Mr CEO, can I address that with one resolution for all of items 17.1 to 17.4 in terms of closing the meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the officer's recommendation is that council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 275 of the Local Government Act. I think that should be the Local Government Regulation, Linnell. Local Government Regulation 2012. Item 17.1 is the South Burnett Community Hospital Foundation Limited Board meeting minutes from December 2019 and June 2020. 17.2 is the property management services for the Nango housing and unit complexes. 17.3, offer to purchase Part 1 of Pound Street, Kingaroy. 17.4, rate, exemptions and remissions, addition to approved list for assessment number 30124-15000-000. Do we have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor. Of the land. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against? Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Resolution passed unanimously. Item 17.4 on the agenda. A request has been received from the ratepayers of rate assessment number 30124-15000-000 to allow a rate remission on their property. This matter was laid on the table at the 15 July 2020 council meeting. It is recommended that council agree to provide a rate remission for the rate assessment. It's the officer's recommendation that council agree to provide a rate remission for rate assessment number 30124-15000-000, effective from 1 July 2020 for 100% of the general rates and 100% of the separate rates and charges, subject to the organisation successfully registering as a charity with the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Those council wish to speak for or against? If not, those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. That now brings the meeting to a close. Do I need a procedural resolution for that, Mr.